Kaboom. Aha, and we're live apparently. Hello, folks out there in YouTube land. It's just coming up to 10 o'clock. It's the 9th of October 2025, and tonight's going to be our final chapter of our Children of Dune book club. Well, hey, so we're just going to wait till 10 o'clock to say hello, and there we go. There's 10 o'clock. So, hello, everyone. My name's Doc Sloan. Thanks very much for joining me, as always, and welcome to my humble little science fiction station here on YouTube, also known as the Doghouse. That way, yeah, there we go. And tonight's a wee milestone, folks, because we're going to hit chapter 64 of our Children of Dune book club, our fourth volume of notes for this one, and it's our final chapter. So we've been at this, I think, since January 2022. Oh, goodness gracious me. So yeah, it's great. We finally got there. Sense of achievement. Pardon me. So as always, let me just get my book open. I quite like this last chapter. As it's a little bit anticlimactical after the action with Ali and Leto throwing around gigantic doors and killing guards and stuff. But it's an interesting little chapter. And I quite like the dialogue in it. Let me see. There we go. I've called this one the Homage ceremony of Leto II, by the way. And I've also written just underneath it, before we get started, this is the final chapter of Children of Dune, and therefore excuse me. Oh. Pardon me. My frog jumped in my throat there, metaphorically speaking. And sorry, and it's the final chapter, therefore, the first Great Dune Trilogy. Pardon me, that one got me unawares. I was going well there. There's Bojack Harkness saying, "Hey there, Hey Bojack, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us." So yeah, we're here, Bojack. So it's looking forward to this tonight. Just getting organized as always. Had a bit of a hectic week here. We got battered a fair bit by Storm Amy, so had to be doing a wee bit of checking and repairs about the house and so on. Pardon me. So let me just check. Yeah, we do have a green for the sound machine. I hope you can all hear me okay. And yeah, let's see. Hopefully this chapter should go quite quickly. We don't have too many things to explore. Though, of course, we do have the question of who is Harem to address. And I haven't managed to get as much work done on that as possible, as I would have liked. But probably at the end of this chapter, we can take a wee bit of a nosy, just have a wee I've created a little page here to scribble down stuff and see what we think. And I've been sent a few things. So hopefully we can dig and we can have a bit of a natter about that. Oh, I mean, I think we did find, as in Sakura Nabawi is gold in old Egyptian. So Harem will be taking a possible. We'll have a wee chat about him anyway. But I'm still on the quest, I suppose, is the way I would like to put it. Because we're dealing with the God Emperor of Dune soon, I'm going to consider that quest left open, if you like. I hope I'm going to take a wee bit of time between the books. Oh, I suppose we should dig one down actually for tonight. We can do that later on, just to have a wee quick nosy at it, I suppose. But yeah, not a massive chapter, this one, 10 pages or so in my copy. There we go. And we have an interesting little epigraph ready to get us going. I'll read it right away, I suppose. Epigraph number 64. As with so many other religions, Muad'Dib's golden elixir of life degenerated into external wizardry. Its mythical signs became mere symbols for deeper psychological process, and those processes, of course, ran wild. What they needed was a living god, and they didn't have one, a situation which Muad'Dib's son has corrected. Pardon me. Now, this is a saying attributed to Lu Tongpin, or Lu, the guest of the cavern. What was needed was a living god. Worship of the hero as divinity, if you like. And right off the bat, Lu Tongpin, also known as Lu, the guest of the cavern, is a reference to Lu Dongben, who's also known as Lu Yan. And in this case, Lu is the family name. Dongben would be the courtesy name, and the other name Lu Yan. Yan is the person's actual first given name, if you like. Yes, and I've written down here birth circa 796 CE to immortality. And this gentleman is one of the 8 immortals. He's an immortal and creator of an elixir of life, a golden pill. And my understanding is the guest of the cavern is actually the meaning of his name, Lu Tongping, as presented here. So let me just quickly. Did I not? Oh, here, where'd that go? Sorry, bear with me a second. There we go. I did bookmark him. And you'll find this chap on Wikipedia. Let me just pop a link in for you guys if you want to check him out. There we go. Lu Dongben is a Taoist scholar and poet who lived during the Tang dynasty in China and whose lifetime supposedly spanned 220 years. Elevated to the status of an immortal in the Chinese cultural sphere by Taoists, he is one of the most widely known of the group of deities known as the 8 Immortals. Lu is also a historical figure and mentioned in the official history book History of Song. He is widely considered to be one of the earliest masters of Nai Dan, or internal alchemy. He is also depicted in art dressed as a scholar carrying a sword to dispel evil spirits. So he's quite an interesting chap. And I was having a wee nosy down there. What was it? His school. I read that down. Oh, I thought I did actually. It's here, isn't it? Somewhere. Let's see. I quite like this. He's usually portrayed as a scholarly, clever man with a genuine desire to help people obtain wisdom and enlightenment and to learn the Tao. However, he is often portrayed as having some character flaws, not an uncommon theme for the colourful Taoist immortals, all of whom in general have various eccentricities. He is portrayed as having bouts of drunkenness, which is not uncommon amongst the often fun-loving 8 immortals. This also parallels several Taoist artists renowned for their love of drinking. Let's see, what else have we got there? The story relates to early on after becoming immortal, he had a strong temper as a young immortal, even deforming a riverbank in a bout of anger. He's said to be a ladies' man, even after or only after becoming an immortal, and for this reason he is generally not invoked by people with romantic problems. There was also a prolific poet. His works were collected in the Quan Tan Shi, which is the complete Tang poetry. Master Purang. Yes, indeed. He's an interesting chap. And there's stuff there, the Yellow Millet Dream. Is it some of this from Journey to the West, I think? Dongben is the courtesy name. There we go. He is called Master Purang and is also called Lu the Progenitor. Fragrance. That's interesting. When he was born, a fragrance allegedly filled the room. Anyway, what was I having a look at? Modern. I suppose there's modern media depictions of the character there. But there we go. It is a reference to an immortal, a Taoist immortal, one of the 8 immortals. And here, actually, I did want to look up something there. Let me find it very quickly on the page, if we can. Yes, there we go. Sorry, right. Just while we were looking this up, in the first year of Tang Bali, which is 825 CE, he was a scholar for a period of time. He served as a country magistrate twice. Soon he was ruined by officialdom, abandoned his official position and retired to the mountains. Once he went to a Chang'an wine store, met the real Zhongli Quan, passed 10 trials, and Quan taught him the way to create the golden pill. Consequently, he learned the way and became an immortal. Subsequently formed the Zhongli Golden Dan School of Taoism. School of the Golden Elixir. He's the founder of the School of the Golden Elixir of Life. Let's see, originator of the material presented in the book Tai Yi Jin Hua Zong Zi. Apologies to anybody, which is the secret of the golden flower. Aha, there we go. So there's a bit of relevance to that within this chapter, if you like, in relation to golden elixirs, golden pills, this kind of thing. And let's just check in with you folks there. There's Flaccid House saying, evening Doc. Hi Flaccid House, how you doing? Bojack saying hello, Flaccid. Yo Bojack. There's Cynthia saying hi Doc. Hi all. Hiya Cynthia, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining me, folks. So that's our reference, I suppose, to our first one from our epigraph here. Is, I suppose, a historical and mythological individual, if you like, but associated with an elixir of life, golden pill, this kind of thing. And immortality. Right. Here we go. Excellent. Okay, folks, here we are. So, chapter 64. Leto sat upon the lion throne to accept the homage of the tribes. Ganima stood beside him one step down. The ceremony in the great hall went on for hours. Tribe after Fremen tribe passed before him through their delegates and their naibs. Each group bore gifts fitting for a god of terrifying powers, a god of vengeance who promised them peace. Oh, sorry, I just realized I hadn't got my copy of the book open here, which we'll probably need. Paperweight, there you are. Oh, sorry about that, folks. Apologies. Sorry, just wanted to check something as I read it. Tribe after Fremen tribe passed before him through their delegates and their naibs. Yeah, that was it. Okay. Right, that sounds good. Oh, actually, I need a pen. So there we go. Sorry, folks. Not badly organized as always. Right. So basically, all the naibs turning up in front of Leto at the throne. And they're pretty scared, aren't they? A god of terrifying powers, a god of vengeance who promised them peace. So he cowed them into submission the previous week, performing for the assembled Arifa of all the tribes. The judges had seen him walk through a pit of fire, emerging unscathed to demonstrate that his skin bore no marks by asking them to study him closely. He'd ordered them to strike him with knives, and the impenetrable skin had sealed his face while they struck at him to no avail. Acids ran off him with only the lightest mist of smoke. He'd eaten their poisons and laughed at them. Ha 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 ha. At the end, he'd summoned a worm and stood facing them at its mouth. He moved from that to the landing field of Arrakis, where he brazenly toppled a guild frigate by lifting one of its landing fins. Whoops. So yes, indeed, he's just basically showing off this kind of thing, his powers and stuff like that. Reminds me of the Irish Kings out doing their posing and stuff. The Arifa had reported all of this with a fearful awe, and now the tribal delegates had come to seal their submission. The vaulted space of the Great Hall with its acoustic dampening systems tended to absorb sharp noises, but a constant rustling of moving feet insinuated itself into the senses, riding on dust and the flint odors brought in from the open. Jessica, who'd refused to attend, watched from a high spy hole behind the throne. Her attention was caught by Farad'n and the realization that both she and Farad'n had been outmaneuvered. Of course, Leto and Ganima had anticipated the sisterhood. The twins could consult within themselves a host of Bene Gesserit greater than all now living in the Empire. We've had this place before, by the way. It's this little spy hole up behind the throne. We've had different people sort of peering down from it as a from a vantage point there at different parts in the Dune series. Excuse me. Jessica was. I think this next bit's quite interesting. Have we stopped to chat about it? We'll just run through it here quickly. I suppose I should have read. Of course, Leto and Ganima had anticipated the sisterhood. So it's there's an exclamation mark there. It's that they've got a whole stack of Bene Gesserit on hand, and they hadn't realised. So she was particularly bitter at the way the Sisterhood's mythology had trapped Alia. Fear built on fear. The habits of generations had imprinted the fate of abomination upon her. Alia had known no hope. Of course, she'd succumbed. Her fate made her. Sorry, read that again. Her fate made the accomplishment of Leto and Ganima even more difficult to face. Not one way out of the trap, but two. Ganima's victory over the inner lives and her insistence that Alia deserved only pity were the bitterest things of all. Hypnotic suppression under stress linked to the wooing of a benign ancestor had saved Ganima. They might have saved Alia, but without hope, nothing had been attempted until it was too late. Alia's water had been poured on the sand. Poor old Alia. I've got a bit of bother with this. What have I written here? I've written that Jessica takes no responsibility whatsoever, none at all, for what happened to Alia. And I've written also pass the buck, if you like. That's what I've written here. Perhaps I wonder what you think about this. She's particularly bitter at the way the Sisterhood's mythology had trapped Alia. So it's their myth that has trapped Alia, a fear built on fear. And that the Sisterhood have developed the litany against fear. And we've been told recently that almost all Reverend Mother training is to do with dealing with the other memory problem, if you like. So the habits of generations had imprinted the fate of abomination upon her. Alia had known no hope. Of course, she'd succumbed. Her fate made the accomplishment of Leto and Ganima even more difficult to face. Not one way to the trap, but two. So she seems to be blaming the Bene Gesserit's concept of what an abomination is, if you like, the myths around it. And that there are fears built upon fears about this, even the term itself, abomination, of what we now know to be somebody who has other memory, and has the consequences of having other memory. But dialing it all the way back, for me, Jessica has a choice of whether to take the water of life while she's pregnant with Alia. And as we find out in June, the from the Fremen, why did you do this? The ceremony could have been legitimately been delayed if they had known that she was pregnant. If you see what I mean, so it wasn't the apparent life-saving thing to do, if you like. It wasn't the smart thing, and I just thought that there's no responsibility at all with Jessica here in relation to what's happened to Alia. Because ultimately it's cause and effect, isn't it? And so it's her taking the water of life while pregnant with this child is the ultimate cause of what's happened to Alia, I think. So I just thought, I don't know, that it seems that she sort of seems to be bitter. She's blaming the Bene Gesserit a little bit, I think, here. But it was almost, and I'm sure she's probably devastated at this point, but it was almost, I don't know. It's a tricky one. I thought I was finding it sort of problematic. I'm considering Jessica's character here. And the other, I think, Alia deserves only pity. Again, I've been thinking about similarities between the Lord of the Rings and the Dune series, and we were talking about the Battle of Arrakis, I think, not too long ago, being almost identical to the Battle of Isengard. Swap out water for sand, swap out worms for trees, and you've pretty much got it. Aye, and it was making. What was it making me think on then? Alia falling to her death. There, it kind of reminds me on, and the use of the word pity. Kind of reminds me on the, the, as we're told in Lord of the Rings, it's the pity of Bilbo, the pity of Frodo, this kind of thing. It just kind of rung a wee bit with me. I think for some reason. Do 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 do. So the Alia deserved only pity was the bitterest thing of all. So just there was potential for Alia to be saved, I think. Hypnotic suppression under stress linked to the wooing of a benign ancestor had saved Ganima. That was her technique. They might have saved Alia, but without hope, nothing had been attempted until it was too late. Alia's water had been poured on the sand. And since poured on the sand, it feels like it's wasted, doesn't it? It doesn't go back to the tribe. There's Chaya Rivka saying shalom, all shalom, Chaya. Thanks very much for joining us. Good to see you. There's Julian Thompson saying hi, all. Hi, Doc. Hi, Julian. How are you? And Flaccid House is saying that Alia's arc has always been so intriguing, bar a few moments where it's clearly the Baron's voice. I find her really whole story so sad. Like you said, she's trapped from day one. Yeah, it's the full tragedy. It really is. I find her a very tragic character. And I find absolutely intriguing. And I'm probably my favorite character, as I've said within the first few books, because of that. And she is absolutely a victim in this. I think it's as I said, this kind of thought process that Jessica's going through here, it makes sense to me. The bitterness, but it seems misdirected. But also maybe it's just a self-preservation thing. It's not taking any kind of hard look at herself and seeing her own role in Alia's fate, if you see what I mean. And I suppose it's considering that perhaps that the abomination thing kicked in possibly only around puberty, in a sense at the beginning of, I suppose, around the time of Dune Messiah or at the end of it. Excuse me. But it's the nature of being pre-born, isn't it? It's that's what's done it. Always, I think Jessica has a, and I also feel that a lot of the characters do abandon Alia. That if I always say that as we've been reading this, she's there, if you know what I mean. But we're constantly always told Duncan she's not there. She's gone. My wife is gone. And as much as it on we go with the kind of Alia Baron thing, she usually there's something there. All the way through, and that should be a hopeful thing in terms of the character. I think it certainly makes us think that it's possible whenever we get into this part at the end of the book that maybe we will redeem Alia just before the end, and that she can be saved because Ganima and Leto have found a way that they can sort out the old Baron and save her, but it's not, and that's kind of part of that tragedy, I think, and it hits us a little bit when Alia dies. But she also she also takes the Baron out. If you see what I mean, she rids us of this evil, having killed him before, But it's a quiet, sad, lonely death, and it is. She's she's a fascinating character right from the get go. I think, So yeah, I just thought. I don't know. I thought it was kind of complicated, to be honest with you, what Jessica's thinking here. But it seemed a little bit passing the buck, maybe, or maybe is it just looking at the Bene Gesserit as a whole, perhaps the Sisterhood's mythology and maybe her part in that again. As I said, we're going to get something said by the God Emperor here coming up, which is the Bene Gesserit's problem, and it's possibly is it Jessica's problem as well. Here, just not seeing her own hand in it, her own how she's changed, how her actions caused change. Jessica sighed, shifting her attention to Leto on the throne. A giant canopic jar containing the water of Muad'Dib occupied a place of honor at his right elbow. He boasted to Jessica that his father within laughed at this gesture, even while admiring it. So we're getting into some things from Egypt, I suppose, here. But what we've got here is, I quite like this one. This is a good one. We have a canopic jar. Canopic jars are named after Canopus. How about that? So, if you want to have a wee look at Wikipedia, this is an interesting one. Canopic jars are funerary vessels that were used by the ancient Egyptians to house embalmed organs that were removed during the mummification process. They also served to store and preserve the viscera of their soul for the afterlife. Citation needed. Says here they date back to the Old Kingdom and continued until the late period in the Ptolemaic period, after which time the viscera was simply wrapped and placed with the body. So, cinerary urns for holding the ashes of cremated persons with a head-shaped lid, also sometimes called canopic, were used by Etruscan civilization, though these vessels are sometimes referred to as canopic urns or canopic jars. Their purpose and use is not related to ancient Egyptian use of canopic jars. So this is the bit I like, by the way. So I just wanted to find it here. So this is kind of interesting. The term canopic reflects the mistaken association by early Egyptologists with the Greek legend of Canopus, who is the boat captain, as it's put here, of Menelaus on the voyage to Troy, who was buried at Canopus in the Delta, where he was worshipped in the form of a jar. In alternative versions, the name derives from the location Canopus, now Abu Qir, in the western Nile Delta near Alexandria, where human-headed jars were worshipped as personifications of the god Osiris. Sorry, I want to write something down very quickly here. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Yes, Canopus. Now, bear with me a second. So, Canopus, if we know, this is kind of interesting. I'm not too quite sure where Frank's going with this, folks, but Canopus jar, as we may know, Canopus is the star of Arrakis. Yeah. So the canopic jars. Just this is a good wee thing, just to let you know. So Canopus was the pilot of the ship of King Menelaus of Sparta during the Trojan War. He was described as a handsome young man who was loved by an Egyptian prophetess Theonoe, but never reciprocated her feelings. According to legend, while visiting the Egyptian coast, Canopus was bitten by a serpent and died. His master Menelaus erected a monument to him at one of the mouths of the River Nile, around which the town of Canopus later developed. And those sources there are from Conon and Strabo. Also named for Canopus is Canopus, the bright star in the southern constellation of Carina, the keel of the ship Argo, and the second brightest star in the night sky after Sirius, which is the dog star. The last de Havilland Comet airliner ever flown was named Canopus after retirement. It was kept at Buntington Aerodrome in England. There you go. But yes, indeed, Arrakis is also orbits Canopus. So it's an interesting little Dune connection, isn't there? There, folks. And in this canopic jar, funerary jar, if you like, we have Paul Atreides and his water. So, very much. Oh, sorry, I just missed my page here. Jumping back. There we go. It's in gold and green, isn't it? So I've just scribbled here, Canopus, named for Canopus, pilot of Menelaus, or helmsman, or captain of a ship, take your pick, on the way to Troy, bitten by a snake, rejected an oracle, Theonoe, buried in a place, is named after him. Very good. So within this canopic jar, that's, I've done a wee drawing of one, there you go, I've done it yellow and, or gold and green in the colours. We have the water of Muad'Dib. And Leto's boasted to Jessica that his father then laughed at this gesture even while admiring it. So he finds it funny but also admires it. That jar and the boasting had firmed her resolve not to participate in this ritual. As long as she lived, she knew she could never accept Paul speaking through Leto's mouth. She rejoiced that House Atreides had survived, but the things that might have been were beyond bearing. Pardon me. And she has lost a lot, hasn't she? Um, Lost her husband, lost her children. I suppose lost possibly her position within the Bene Gesserit, etc. But she's a mover and shaker, isn't she? Lady Jessica. All of this kind of comes from her decisions. There we go. Christopher Crowley saying the twins were also afflicted in the same manner and they found a way to manage. Cynthia said Jessica never has understood the preborn or that these children are not children. She herself has been trapped by the sisterhood mythology in continuing to underestimate them. Yes. And we'll get this, don't we, that they just haven't figured it out that they have all of these lives. And they're constantly telling them, aren't they, these two children? We're not children, you know. Excuse me, I'm just pulling this pillow up behind me here. Christopher Christ says, I think the lack of guidance, the burden of leadership without a mandate, and the overconsumption of spice did her in. Yeah, I suppose the difference between her and the twins, I suppose, is that it's the drugs, really, isn't it? It's in Jessica's case, it's taking the water of life willingly while pregnant. With Chani's case, it's what was the term? It's a contraceptive poison, isn't it? Put in her food, and then to counter the results of that poison, Chani is forced to consume large amounts of melange. So the difference, I suppose, is that it's slightly different drugs, I suppose, isn't it? With the two, the twins are the product of a pregnant woman taking large overdosing to a point, if you like, on refined melange, whereas the other one is the bile from the worm, if you like, that unprocessed poison that becomes the water of life when transmuted by a Reverend Mother. So there's a slight difference in the drugs, I suppose. But yes, it's two mothers who have. I suppose there are some differences, but ultimately these children are the results of mothers taking drugs while pregnant. if we want to break it down to that way, you know. Obviously, it's part of this much bigger thing. This breeding program and so on. And we're going to have a wee chat about it here as well. But I think that Jessica, just because of this. And it just made me think, you know, you've got a hand. You really do have a hand in what's happened to your daughter. It's your choice, actually. Fundamentally, your choice made Alia an abomination. That's the way I see it. Again, it's part of Alia's tragedy. It surely has got to be part of Jessica's tragedy, but I think that she can't see it. And in a funny way, I think that it's like a microcosm of what we're going to consider the Bene Gesserit as a whole, if you like. That their own problem with their program is that they can't see that their own hand in it, their own change in it, I suppose, you know. Christopher saying Ganima did well for herself. She does, and well, I've written a couple of things here about Ganima in this chapter, but we can argue that we always talk about it's not good to sit on the throne. It's best to be the person standing right behind it. If you see what I mean, that you can direct that, especially when we consider that the people sitting on the throne are in effect weapons. Kwisatz Haderach was meant to be a weapon. Paul Atreides was meant to be a weapon wielded by the Bene Gesserit. It didn't work that way. But in many ways, that's also what the God Emperor is. He's a weapon. But Organa is going to be armed casually on the back of the throne there, isn't she? Cannabis is the star around which Arrakis revolves. It is indeed, Julian. And I want to throw out there that the Canopic seems to reference the place where physical and liquid meet. Very good. Well, we've got to get the inscription on the jar. And I also want to point out one more time to everybody that Gully Foyle goes to Canopus, to a planet around Canopus, and there meets a worm gasping for air on a beach in 1953. there's something I think to do with that from Tiger. Always remember reading and just going, what? So there's a kind of worm-like creature back in the 25th century, if you like, 25 AD, I suppose, that Gully Foyle meets in Canopus. So there we go. And I always enjoy that. I think it's maybe a little science fiction nod or something else that Frank kind of got the idea from. Chai is saying, I think the fact that there were two was the difference. They weren't trying to figure it out on their own with multiple inner voices with varying degrees of self-interest and trustworthiness to guide them. Yeah, the fact that they're twins, and I suppose that what I would agree with that as well. We're gonna get a sense of that right at the very end, with kind of Leto's last little speech, which is basically a threat, and it's letting him know that these two twins are going to be as they always were, back to back, looking after each other, facing they've got each other's backs, and this is again, as much as Leto is the emperor here, this is the result of Leto and Ganim's plan. And arguably, I would say that possibly, depending on how you want to look at turning into a gigantic worm, we could say that Ganima gets out of this much better than Leto does, because she doesn't have to do that. But yes, problem shared is a problem halved as well, isn't it? So yeah, she's not having. Jessica doesn't like her son Paul speaking through her grandson's mouth. She rejoiced that House Atreides had survived, but the things that might have been were beyond bearing. So we beyond bearing. I mean, that should give us a sense of sympathy there. That's possibly I was kind of looking for up above there. She has lost her children. She's lost. It's been a harsh, few decades. All to do with this planet for Jessica. She doesn't like it, does she? So we depart from Jessica here. There's one other thing I want to mention, by the way, just in terms of what we could argue is possibly the sidelining of female characters, but Irulan is gone from our book, and we don't see her, hear of her, and there's no real. Last we heard, I think she was in. She'd been released possibly from jail with Stilgar, I think. But we'll get no kind of, I suppose, conclusion to, or just an appearance of Irulan within this situation here, and that arguably we could consider that if she's been our kind of courtier and historian up until now, and possibly even a scribe, that Farad'n is now in her place, but she's not here, and we won't hear from her. That made me a bit curious as well, just because something's absence makes it notable, doesn't it? So let's see. Farad'n sat cross-legged beside the jar of Muad'Dib's water. It was the position of the royal scribe, an honor newly conferred and newly accepted. Farad'n felt that he was adjusting nicely to the new realities, although Tyachonic still raged and promised dire consequences. Tyachonic and Stilgar had formed a partnership of distrust, which seemed to amuse Leto. Um, I would say Tychonic would need to get a hold on his temper pretty quickly. I think around Leto II, but he's amused by him and Stilgar. A partnership of distrust between the Fremen and the Sardaukar, old enemies. And again, we've House Corrino and House Atreides sitting together here, also old enemies. In the hours of the homage ceremony, Farad'n had gone from awe to boredom to awe. They were an endless stream of humanity, these peerless fighting men. Their loyalty renewed to the Atreides on the throne could not be questioned. They stood in submissive terror before him, completely daunted by what the Arifa had reported, by what the judges had said. At last it drew to a close. The final Naib stood before Leto, Stilgar in the rearguard position of honor. The first shall be last, that kind of thing. Instead of panniers heavy with spice, fire jewels, or any of the other costly gifts which lay in mounds around the throne, Stilgar bore a headband of braided spice fibre. The Atreides hawk had been worked in gold and green into its design. I also just wanted to point out there that just the description of all the wealth around the throne, panniers heavy with spice, fire jewels, or any of the other costly gifts which lay in mounds around the throne, and it just made me. And as much as he's not a worm yet, it just made me think of a dragon and its treasure, if you like, a worm. And its treasure even. And I mean worm with a WYRM, like, a dragon without legs, this kind of thing. So this is the gift: a headband of braided spice fibre. The Atreides hawk had been worked in gold and green into its design. Ganima recognized it and shot a sideways glance at Leto. Stilgar placed the headband on the second step below the throne, bowed low. I give you the headband worn by your sister when I took her into the desert to protect her, he said. Leto suppressed the smile. I know you've fallen on hard times, Stilgar, Leto said. Is there something here you would have in return? He gestured at the piles of costly gifts. No, my lord. I accept your gift then, Leto said. He rocked forward, brought up the hem of Ganima's robe, ripped a thin strip from it. In return, I give you this bit of Ganima's robe, the robe she wore when she was stolen from your desert camp, forcing me to save her. Stilgar accepted the cloth in a trembling hand. Do you mock me, my lord? Mock you? By my name, Stilgar, never would I mock you. I have given you a gift without price. I command you to carry it always next to your heart as a reminder that all humans are prone to error and all leaders are human. So, I suppose the other Naibs are here. You've fallen on hard times, Stilgar. Something you want? It's not that nice, or is it? I suppose I've written. I'm not too sure, but Stilgar, no, no, my lord. He doesn't need anything. And so Leto rips the hem of Ganima's robe, takes a thin strip from it, and hands him this, and it's a reminder. This is the robe my sister was wearing the day she was stolen from your desert camp, forcing me to save her from when you failed to protect her. This kind of thing. It's a memento, isn't it? In a kind of way, it's an interesting thing. It's a as much as it's I think basically a teaching opportunity here for the God Emperor. It is a memento of an adventure, I think, and it's a personal thing. Kind of reminds you like a lady's favor for the knights, this kind of thing. The onto the lance, this carrying a lady's colours, this kind of thing. Jousting and so on. So the interesting thing I've just written here is that there's no writing here regarding Ganima's response, that her brother's just excuse me, not so much what do you do? So there's no response from her here. almost as if it's expected, or just that she doesn't react. Um, Perhaps this is part of their plan because the way she gave a sideways glance at Leto. Um, so also just the wee point here. I've given you a gift without price. Something given has no value, as we would say here. I command you to carry it always next to your heart, as a reminder that all humans are prone to error and all leaders are human. And remember that Leto is not human. So there's something, I don't know, as much as it's the word there is humans are prone to error and all leaders are human. But as we're constantly being reminded by Leto now that he is no longer human, does that mean not prone to error at all? Hmm. A thin chuckle escaped Stilgar. What a Naib you would have made. What a Naib I am. Naib of Naibs. Never forget that. No, sorry, I'm laughing at myself here. I've just written here. This was the perfect opportunity for Bangaria for Frank Herbert here. What a Naib I am. Exclamation mark. The next statement, Naib of Naibs. No exclamation mark. And then never forget that exclamation mark. And I really think I won't tell you what I wrote next to the full stop after Naib of Naibs, but it's got 3 letters, and the first one's F and the last one's S. And I just, what a Naib I am. Naib of Naibs, I think should be exclaimed as well. Sorry, it's just what I think about it. And never forget that with the exclamation mark. It's a perfect opportunity for Bangaria. 3 exclamation marks, one line pretty much. And I just yeah. Sometimes Frank, you expect he uses them where you don't expect them, and sometimes when you really think there should be an exclamation mark there, he doesn't go for it. Sorry, that's my whimsy, folks. As you say, my lord. Stilgar swallowed, remembering the reports of his Arifa, and he thought, once I thought of slaying him, now it's too late. His glance fell on the jar, a graceful opaque gold capped with green. That is water of my tribe. And I like that, actually. I thought that's Stilgar, showing a bit of a backbone here. In many ways, that's mine, basically. And I just put ballsy. That's quite ballsy of Stilgar next to that, I thought. And mine, Leto said. I command you to read the inscription upon its side. Read it aloud that all may hear it. Stilgar cast a questioning glance at Ganima, but she returned it with a lift of her chin, a cold response which sent a chill through him. Were these Atreides imps bent on holding him to answer for his impetuosity and his mistakes? The word imp there, I think, is quite interesting. We're also going to have demons in a moment or so. What's it going to say about imps on Wikipedia? Just a curiosity. Imp is a European mythological being frequently described in folklore and superstition. The word may have derived from the term impe, used to denote a young grafted tree. Imps are often described as troublesome and mischievous more than seriously threatening or dangerous, and as lesser beings rather than more important supernatural beings. The attendants of the devil are sometimes described as imps. They are usually described as lively and having a small stature. There we go. Old English noun impa meant a young shoot or scion of a plant or tree, and later came to mean the scion of a noble house or a child in general. Starting in the 16th century, it was often used in expressions like imp of serpents, imp of hell, imp of the devil, and so on. By the 17th century, it came to mean a small demon, a familiar of a witch. The Old English noun and associated verb impian appear to come from unattested late Latin term imputa. Impetus is attested in the Salic law. The neuter plural of ancient Greek, natural, implanted, grafted. Impetos, yes. Ancient Greek's Impetos there, sorry. Unlike the Christian folklore, demons in Germanic legend are not necessarily always evil. Imps were often mischievous rather than evil or harmful. In some religions, they are attendants of the gods. There we go. And there's something about the link in them. I always like imps. I think they're cool. Imps and goblins and things like that. I remember a long time ago when I was very young, about 10 or 11, around those kind of years, I used to paint the wee, what would you call the wee Dungeons and Dragons miniatures, the 35mm ones. But used to get some from a company, that would be the Citadel miniatures, but used to get them from a company called Ralpartha, I think. And I had a couple of wee imps. they were imps, and I loved painting them. They were very, very cool. I liked them a lot. But yeah, imps from Stilgar. We're also going to have demons, I suppose, in terms here. Read it, Leto said, pointing. Slowly, Stilgar mounted the steps, bent to look at the jar. Presently, he read aloud. The water is the ultimate essence, a source of outward streaming creativity. Though motionless, this water is the means of all movement. So it's motionless, yet it is the means of all movement. We've got a paradoxical statement there. Paradox, the joy of paradox within Frank Herbert's work. What does it mean, my lord? Stilgar whispered. He felt awed by the words, touched within himself in a place he could not understand. The body of Muad'Dib is a dry shell like that abandoned by an insect, Leto said. He mastered the inner world while holding the outer world in contempt, and this led to catastrophe. He mastered the outer world while excluding the inner world, and this delivered his descendants to the demons. The golden elixir will vanish from Dune, yet Muad'Dib's seed goes on, and his water moves our universe. Stilgar bowed his head. Mystical things always left him in turmoil. So I've just put there. See the epigraph again. The golden elixir here that we're talking about, and I suppose that's going to be that within Dune as a reference to Melange. But again, just with our little reference, the golden elixir of life, Muad'Dib's golden elixir of life. Here we're told all this by Lu Tongping, who created a golden elixir of life, if you like, the golden pill. So more paradox there, I suppose, or contradictions. He mastered the inner world while holding the out. Well, no, they are paradoxical statements, aren't they? He mastered the inner world while holding the outer world in contempt, and this led to catastrophe. He mastered the outer world while excluding the inner world, and this delivered his descendants to the demons. And again, the catastrophe there, if you like, one of the descriptions I would use of Paul Atreides is the catastrophic hero. Yes, indeed. So his body's gone, the water that's here, his seed, etc. All of this, it moves life, if you like. It's still, I suppose, the influence of this man is going to extend far past his time in the mortal universe, if you like. Stilgar bowed his head. Mystical things always left him in turmoil. So this is Leto. The beginning and the end are one, Leto said. You live in air, but do not see it. A phase has closed. Out of that closing grows the beginning of its opposite. Thus we will have Kralazak. Everything returns later in a changed form. You have felt thoughts in your head. Your descendants will I've written the word twice there, sorry. Your descendants will feel thoughts in their bellies. Let me just check that again, sorry. 32, where are we? Oh, Hololicious, behave. I'm getting barked down here. Well, low growled at the moment. It'll evolve up to a bark, I'm sure. Everything returns later in changed form. You have felt thoughts in your head. Your descendants will feel thoughts in their bellies. Return to Siege Tabar, Stilgar. Gurney Halleck will join you there as my advisor in your council. Now, everything returns later in changed form. You have felt thoughts in your head. Your descendants will feel thoughts in their bellies. In other words, they'll starve. Will starve. This doesn't sound good for Stilgar's descendants, does it? I also put here, just at this point, the beginning and the end are one. We live in the air but do not see it. Phase is closed. One out of that closing grows the beginning of its opposite. We'll have a wee natter about that. But essentially, what we used to have was, if you consider it, was Paul doing his best to avoid the jihad, and then, hey, let's have a jihad. And we've got Leto, should we avoid Kralazek? Hey, in this year, we will have Kralazek, if you like. And we do have an invert. Well, I suppose the very end of this chapter is an inversion of what's been going on, and we've had these repetitive cycles of action, and ideas, plans within plans within plans, all of this kind of thing, avoiding traps. It's, and we are going to see an inversion, if you like. And especially when we get to the end of the chapter, if we consider how Dune ended, and Jessica's words to Chani, and we can consider what's basically being said to Farad'n. Farad'n's getting almost an identical speech, pretty much. Farad'n is going to be a concubine, a male concubine, pretty much unsaid, but that's what it's going. That's what he's going to be. This is Stilgar. Don't you trust me, my lord? Stilgar's voice was low. Completely. Else I'd not send Gurney to you. He'll begin recruiting the new force we'll need soon. I accept your pledge of fealty, Stilgar. You are dismissed. Stilgar bowed low, backed off the steps, turned, and left the hall. The other Naibs fell into step behind him, according to the Fremen principle that the last shall be first, but some of their queries could be heard on the throne as they departed. What were you talking about up there, Still? What does that mean, those words on Muad'Dib's water? And we say goodbye to Stilgar here, and that's it. That's bye-bye, Stilgar. Exit Stilgar, as I put. And again, I think, well, we should consider Stilgar at this point a wee bit. I think as we are hitting the last chapter, in many ways, Stilgar is the kind of character that everything's kind of, well, how do we put it, that we get to view this change within the Atreides, and he's their friend, or he has a relationship with them. And it's strange, I think. Stilgar is a great character, and we can use him in many ways to look at the Atreides. But here we're saying goodbye to him. He exits at this point. We're rounding up the book. But with his fate uncertain, I suppose, except I get the sense that he'll be used for more violence, that we need fighting men, is what they're after. There's going to be a bit of fighting to come before we can have this peace. So I get the sense that just Stilgar and Gurney are back off to the usual kind of stuff that they would have to get up to, back to war and all of that kind of thing. But he's put it this way, he wasn't very happy previously, was he? But just in this, everyone's, I suppose, kowtowing with terror at what this is Leto II. He's probably an unknown entity at this point now, because he's no longer human, and he's got everybody terrified. And we have a prediction of your people are going to be on their, have thoughts in their bellies. It's a suggestion that I'm going to starve them. The golden elixir will vanish from Dune as well. Yeah, Muad'Dib's water will go on. That's melange. His entire world is changing, and off he goes. That's all we'll ever see of Stilgar, and we can wonder about his people. Leto spoke to Farad'n. Did you get all that, scribe? Yes, my lord. My grandmother tells me she trained you well in the mnemonic processes of the Bene Gesserit. That's good. I don't want you scribbling beside me. As you command, my lord. Come and stand before me, Leto said. Farad'n obeyed, more than ever thankful for Jessica's training. When you accepted the fact that Leto no longer was human, no longer could think as humans thought, the course of his golden path became ever more frightening. Leto looked up at Farad'n. The guards stood well back out of earshot. Only the councillors of the inner presence remained on the floor of the great hall, and they stood in subservient groups well beyond the first step. Ganima had moved closer to rest an arm on the back of the throne. So this is Ganima and Leto working together again. And I've scribbled down here, really this is the first glimpse of the true power behind the throne at this time is Ganima. Leto sits on the throne and the power behind it is Ganima. I fully believe that here. And they're going to team up on Farad'n. I think. Let me just catch up with some comments here, folks, before we go any further with this. And then we have this great, I suppose this is how we'll head out, is we have this great bit of banter between Leto and Farad'n here, which I really like. I think it's a great bit of dialogue by Frank Herbert. And then we sort of we'll have him lead basically with the comment with just Farad'n and Ganima at the end here. Let's get some fluids. Oh, hang on, we've gone up a bit. Right, bear with me, folks. Sorry. Julian Thompson saying Stilgar's descendants are well loved by Leto during his reign. Well, that doesn't bode well for them. I'm going to have to. By the way, I've decided, folks, I'm going to just read through God Emperor once. I think before I start the book club, I need to get familiar with it again. Normally, I go with one chapter, but I'll give it one read and then do the one chapter at a time. I think once we get started. But I'm kind of chomping at the bit. But I need to. I think I'm going to have my work cut out for me with this book club coming. Not that I haven't prior to this. So they said, is Ganima really wearing the same robe for this ceremony? Was this exchange planned in advance then? I kind of thought that. This is, surely that's desert, out in the desert, having an adventure, this kind of thing. And that they might have, this is the Emperor and his sister, they might have had a change of wardrobe. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I think, was the exchange planned in advance then? That's kind of where I thought that it was. It was, oh, here we go, and he's acting as we would have thought. And but that's why if it fits with her not reacting in any way. Cynthia, I thought that was odd. If somebody reached over and ripped a bit of clothing off someone's, robe, I think they would have, at least a physical reaction to it. But there's no reaction at all presented by Frank there. But we get that chin up whenever, that kind of haughty. It's almost a childish thing as well coming from Ganima, isn't it? Towards Stilgar, this. That's kind of how I thought of it, There's Joseph Smith, student fan, saying, howdy, Joseph, how you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. There's Carlos Crescelia saying, hey, everybody, sorry I'm late. No worries, Carlos, how you doing? Thank you, as always, for joining us. Good to see you. Chai is saying, I think Paul was eventually master the inner world as Muad'Dib and of the outer world as the preacher. And I think there's flaws, I suppose, rejecting the outer world is too much in the vision, isn't it? That's the problem for Paul. Really. Master the inner world as Muad'Dib, of the outer world as the preacher. Gets it. Yeah, and again, we have to consider that sort of redemption for Paul. How do we feel about Paul as a character at the end? Acting as a kind of sacrificial diversion for Leto. Leto's interpretation of the jar inscription points to Ganima, focus of the exchanged gifts, as she'll be the one who continues the genetic line of Muad'Dib. Yes, indeed. I've made a wee comment about it whenever we get there. but simply put, at this, well, whenever we do get there, I suppose. But as Cynthia points out, as the breeding program is going to be explained to us, that the Atreides line from this point on, with Ganima being this matriarch, if you like, will be a distaff branch, if you like. It's the family. How do we put it there? The family line will be through the female line, as the distaff branch, as it's known. Spear is the male line. Sorry. So yes, indeed. Where would that go? Sorry, interpretation of German scripture puts the Galliver focus of the exchange gifts, and she will be the one who continues the genetic line of Muad'Dib. Yes, indeed. It's all through Ganima from now on, pretty much. But Leto's genes will not be passed on. Because he's got no lines. Let's see. Oh yeah, I was catching up my comments. Sorry, bear with me, folks, before we pile. Thompson, opposites are the great theme in Leto's time. The last and the first will come back later. Thoughts in their bellies seems less about starvation, more about long-term. But fundamentally, I think it's about putting people under the boot, isn't it? Julian, again, it's been a while since I've read God Emperor, but that's what I get as the gist of is hard times produce hard people, that kind of thing. Right, let's see. Okay, that's us caught up. So come and stand before me, Leto said. Let's see. Okay, we've read past that. You've not agreed. Yes, indeed, it was Ganima. Move closer to rest an arm on the back of the throat. That's where we got to. You've not agreed to give me your Sardakar, Leto said, but you will. I owe you much, but not that, Farad'n said. You think they'd not made well with my Fremen, as well as those new friends Stilgar and Tychonik? Yet you refuse. I await your offer. Then I must make the offer, knowing you will never repeat it. I pray my grandmother has done her part well, that you are prepared to understand. What must I understand? So here we go. So off we go. This is we've got a bit of speech incoming from the God Emperor, with little interjections, I suppose, with Farad'n. So to see what he must understand, what we must understand. So this is the first part of it. What must I understand, says Farad'n. There's always a prevailing mistake in any civilization, Leto said. It holds itself as a barrier against change, and that always future generations, unprepared for the universe's treachery. Oh, sorry, I'll read that again. Hang on, that doesn't sound right at all. I think I might have missed a bit there. Bear with me a second, folks. Get that read again. 2:46. Right. There's always a prevailing mistake in any civilization, Leto said. It builds itself as a barrier against change, and that always future generations. I've left out a word there, haven't I? Always leaves future generations. Sorry about that. Bear with me. That's the problem. Always leaves. Right. Unprepared for the universe's treasure. Right. Sorry about that. That's what was wrong there. I left out a word. I'll read that again, folks. There's always a prevailing mistake in any civilization, Leto said. It builds itself as a barrier against change, and that always leaves future generations unprepared for the universe's treachery. All mistakes are the same in building these barriers. The Messiah, the mistake of science, technology, and the mistake of nature itself. We live in an imperium which such a mistake has shaped, and now that imperium is falling apart because most people don't distinguish between mistake and their universe. You see, the mistake is like demon possession. It tends to take over the consciousness becoming all things to the observer. Now, got to be a problem here. Actually, that's not what it says in my book at all. What it says in my book, just running back this, is we live in an imperium that I have, which is the wrong word altogether, between Mystique and their universe. I've checked Berkeley, it should be distinguish. Oh, hey, I think we lost a little bit. I think we got lost there for a wee second, folks. Just noticed our connection cut off. I don't know if you missed that or not. I just was saying that in my copy of the book, we have the word diminish there instead of distinguish. Where are we? If we can get it to focus, come on. Sorry, usually quite. Oh, it's this hand. Hang on, let me see if you can see that there. Where are we? There we go. I've got diminish between Mystique and the universe. It should be distinguish, by the way. So the mystique of science, technology, and the mystique of nature itself. We live in an imperium which such a mystique has shaped, and now that imperium is falling apart because most people don't distinguish between mystique and their universe. You see, the mystique is like demon possession. It tends to take over the consciousness, becoming all things to the observer. I agree with this in a certain sense. Some of these mystiques do take people over, and it becomes their raison d'etre, or their everything and their all, you know. And especially, I suppose, in Northern Ireland, we have we've got a great combination of quite a lot of these. But the hero leader mystique, the religious mystique, the Messiah mystique, yeah, probably the mystique of science and technology, not so much. I suppose the mystique of nature, perhaps, but yeah, these kind of things, the elitism of your particular organization or secret club or cult or whatever makes you think a certain way. It's just not good for you. I recognize your grandmother's wisdom in these words. Well, a good cousin. She asked me if I were abomination. I answered in the negative. This was my first treachery. You see, Ganima escaped this, but I did not. I was forced to balance the inner lives under the pressure of excessive melange. I had to seek the active cooperation of those aroused lives within me. Doing this, I avoided the most malignant and chose a dominant helper thrust upon me by the inner awareness which was my father. I am not, in truth, my father or this helper. Then again, I am not the second Leto. So, now this is a pretty important statement. We're told here now. So that was very Northern Irish of me, wasn't it? Here now. So here now. That he was asked if he was an abomination. He said no. That was my first treachery. You see, Ganima escaped this, but I did not. So the answer, therefore, is Leto. Based on what perhaps the Bene Gesserit definition of what is an abomination. Is he one? It looks to be the answer is yes. And in relation to what we've heard with Jessica's thoughts from the peephole up above the throne, let me see. How will I put it? She was thinking, that there was two different ways to save Alia. It seems that perhaps, and is this maybe why Leto was kind of keen to get on with her, was that there wasn't. But if we believe what Leto says here, that there wasn't two ways, that he didn't survive this. He wasn't able to find a way around it at all. He became abomination. So therefore, there was only one way, really. If you see what I mean, that would have saved Ali, and it would have been the hypnotic suppression. It would have been Ganima's way. First treachery, we call this. Abomination is what we're talking about. We're told also that this dominant helper was thrust upon him by the inner awareness that was his father. In other words, by Paul. But I'm not in truth my father, not my father, or his helper. And again, I'm not the second Leto, and he's not because he's Leto. Technically, he's the third Leto, as we all know. He's Leto the third, really. But Leto the second, the baby, didn't rule, I think is the way that we'll go with it. Pardon me. But he's technically Leto the third, if you like. I'm starting to think that could all get very confusing. It's a bit as confusing as Dune Part 1, Dune Part 2, Dune Part 3, this kind of thing. That Dune Part 3 is going to be actually Dune Part 2. And possibly Dune. I don't know. Gets confusing. So the different mistakes that we have there, I suppose, going way back to the beginning of Dune, this is kind of the thing that's discussed about, the mistake of the Sardaukar, that the thing that the Atreides understand, how the Sardaukar are constructed. The big mystery is where they get them from. This kind of thing. It's their mystique. Where does it come from? It's a military mistake, but we have religious mistakes mentioned here. Hero leader mistakes, which the word leader there can cover all sorts of groups, if you like. Messiahs. Science and technology is an interesting one to have here. Nature, sure, mystical, magical nature, but we can understand it. Science is things that you know. I suppose the mistake comes from some people knowing things and others not. Ultimately, and technology is arts and crafts of any kind. So you can find mistake in all of these things. And that this universe is caught up in its mistake rather than in real life, if that makes sense, rather than the reality is what I get from that. But we also get our first of two treacheries here. So I'm not my father, I'm not my helper, and again, I'm not second Leto. So from Farad'n, we get this term here. I'll just explain. Both for him and for us. You have an admirable directness, Leto said. I'm a community dominated by one who was ancient and surpassingly powerful. He fathered a dynasty which endured for 3,000 of our years. His name was Harem, and until his line trailed out into congenital weaknesses and superstitions of a descendant, his subjects lived in a rhythmic sublimity. They moved unconsciously with the changes of the seasons. They bred individuals who tended to be short-lived, superstitious, and easily led by a god-king. Taken as a whole, they were a powerful people. Their survival as a species became habit. I don't like the sound of that. Nor do I, really, Leto said. But it's the universe I'll create. Why? Which I've written next, that is a good question. It's a lesson I learned on Dune. We kept the presence of death a dominant spectre among the living here. By that presence, the dead change the living. The people of such a society sink down into their bellies, but when the time comes from the opposite, when they arise, they are great and beautiful. That doesn't answer my question, Farad'n protested. You don't trust me, cousin, nor does your own grandmother. And with good reason, Leto said, but she acquiesces because she must. Bene Gesserits are pragmatists in the end. I share their view of the universe, of our universe, You wear the marks of that universe. You retain the habits of rule, cataloguing all around you in terms of their possible threat or value. I agreed to be your scribe. It amused you and flattered your real talent, which is that of historian. You've a definite genius for reading the present in terms of the past. You've anticipated me on several occasions. I don't like your veiled insinuations, Farad'n said. Good. You've come from ambition to your present lowered estate. Didn't my grandmother warn you about infinity? It attracts us like a floodlight in the night, blinding us to the excesses it can inflict upon the finite. Bene Gesserit aphorisms, Farad'n protested. Oh, excuse me. But much more precise, Leto said. The Bene Gesserit believed they could predict the course of evolution, but They overlooked their own changes in the course of that evolution. They assumed they would stand still while their breeding plan evolved. I have no such reflexive blindness. Look carefully at me, Farad'n, for I am no longer human. So your sister assures me. Farad'n hesitated. Then, abomination? By the sisterhood's definition, perhaps. Harum is cruel and autocratic. I partake of his cruelty. Mark me well. I have the cruelty of the husbandman, and this human universe is my farm. Fremen once kept tame eagles as pets, but I'll keep a tame Farad'n. Now, should I push on with this or just jump back a wee bit? It's a fair bit of stuff here. Yeah, we'll just jump back a wee bit just to run over this, I think. So he's talking about, we've got Harum here, by the way, who we'll have a natter about at the end, I think. In terms of what I've got, I suppose there's a few candidates for Harum. And also the meaning of the word can be as in forbidden. And it's possible that Harum is some sort of composite character, but in terms of dynasties that last for 3,000 years, there aren't any. As far as I know, except for fictitious ones or mythological ones. Yes, indeed. So Harem's a bit of a mystery. I've still been finding stuff out this week, actually, and I kind of thought I was back on the track. My goal was to prove that he was Cheops. But I have been unable to do so. But we'll have a couple of we'll have a little chat about him. I've created a space in the book, by the way, just for whenever we get at the end of this chapter, just to have a bit of a natter about him, and we can scribble down any ideas. But I'm still working on it. It's a fun problem. So the Bene Gesserit's problem here is, what, first of all, I suppose, jumping back a wee bit. So his descendants died out through weakness. Individuals, short-lived, superstitious, easily led by a god king. Taken as a whole, they were a powerful people. Doesn't sound like it, does it? Their survival of the species became habit. I don't like the sound of that, nor do I really, but it's the universe I'll create. Why? So here's the lesson. It's a lesson I learned on Dune. We kept the presence of death a dominant spectre among the living here. By that presence, the dead changed the living. The people of such a society sink down into their bellies. But when the time comes for the opposite, when they arise, they are great and beautiful. Now, Northern Ireland's like this. Let me just put it in these terms: within the Troubles and so on, the presence of death is a dominant spectre amongst the living here, and it still is. We have streets here where you'll have murals to the terrorist organizations with real gravestones to be, part of the mural, this kind of thing. And very much the dead do have a massive effect on the living here, which is kind of annoying. Because the dead have no business inflicting their business on the living, as far as I'm concerned. You're dead, you're done, on you go. You had your shot. Life's for other people. So I suppose, again, particularly with the presence of that, we have ancient history of slaughters and all this kind of stuff. It goes back, the Troubles itself, a whole lot of dead people. And a lot of people it's just silly. But it has an effect on your society. Halloween is an Irish thing, by the way. We're coming up to Samhain, and it's a big part of our culture. Very interesting. I just thought I would mention this because I've talked a wee bit about this before. Seamus Heaney has a poem about the Northern Irish people, and it's to do with exactly what Leto says here, but it's not quite what he thinks. And for example, people of such a society sink down into their bellies, in the ground, if you like. But when the time comes, when they arise, they are great and beautiful. But the poems are to do with Heracles. I think he uses Hercules and Antaeus. I think we might have talked about this myth before. Heracles meets Antaeus, I think, on his way to complete a sort of an additional labor, if you like, part of his 12 labors, and it's on the way to the Garden of the Hesperides, I believe. Antaeus is a highway robber, and his mother is the Earth. Basically, he's a chthonic geezer, and he basically kills people at the side of the road and robs them. And Heracles encounters him. Let's see, hang on. Let's find it. Where are you? What have we got? Uploading some roads. Where's my apology? That's a good question. I must have fished it out for some reason. Let's see it though. Sorry, I can't find it. I don't know what I've done with it. Must have been. Oh, here, hang on. Wait a sec. Let me just double check over here before I give up. What have we done? That's my technology. Oh, book. Oh, Gordon, damn it. Right, I've no idea. I'll not waste your time, folks. It's probably down. In fact, tell you what, give me 1 wee second. I'll just check the other room because it would be useful. Oh, sorry, folks. I have no idea where it is. I've been trying to tidy up in here. It's always a bad idea. Basically, to cut a long story short, as long as Antaeus is attached to the Earth, he can't be defeated. And how Heracles beats him is by lifting him up off the ground and crushing him so his feet don't touch the Earth, basically. But the analogy, I suppose, is that being a chthonic deity, the analogy is it's a bit like Antaeus is a bit like the Northern Irish people, that we're in the ground, we're on the ground, we're associated with the earth and the dirt. And if we ever try to lift ourselves up into the sky, it'll be our destruction. And I thought it was an odd thing, actually. It interests me. Heaney's use of this poem. Let me quickly have a look. Oh. Look at these Antaeus. There he is. What have we got? Where's my fluids? Antaeus, literally opponent, derived from Anteo, face I oppose, known to the Berbers as Anti, is a figure in Berber and Greek mythology, is famed for his defeat by Heracles as part of the labors of Hercules. Let's see, he was the son of Poseidon and Gaia, who lived in the interior desert of Libya. His wife was the goddess Tingi, for whom it was claimed that the city of Tangier in Morocco was named, although it could be the other way around. And he had a daughter named Alcaeus or Barki. Another daughter, Iphigenia, consorted with Heracles. Let's see. Antaeus would challenge all passers-by to wrestling matches and remained invincible as long as he remained in contact with his mother, the Earth. As Greek wrestling, like its modern equivalent, typically attempted to force opponents to the ground, he always won, killing his opponents. He built a temple to his father using their skulls. Antaeus fought Heracles as he was on his way to the Garden of the Hesperides as his 11th labor. Heracles realized that he could not beat Antaeus by throwing or pinning him. Instead, he held him aloft and then crushed him to death in a bear hug. The contest between Heracles and Antaeus was a favored subject in ancient and Renaissance sculpture. There's a picture. Who's that by Francisco de Zurbarán there. So that's the myth. There's a goddess sea also, but yeah, Heaney's got a couple of poems about that. Oh, that's interesting. But the idea that when they rise up out of the ground, they are great and beautiful. It's the opposite with what he's saying. We shouldn't rise up. It's to do with our association with the earth, if you see what I mean. More than anything, a bit like Antaeus's relationship to the earth there. There you go. Just thought I'd throw that in there. But it's an interesting thing. And it's not good for a society, I think, the ever presence of death, territorial markings and memorials to war and the dead and killers left, right, and centre. It's generally not good for society, I think. There's a big thing in Northern Ireland at the minute. Is an attempt to, and you'll see it more in sort of quieter towns, I suppose, maybe a little bit, but to create big works of art on gable end houses and stuff instead of the usual terrorist murals. And some of them are really nice, actually. They're kind of brightening up the place, But yeah, Halloween's a big thing in this country. The big ones in Derry, I think Derry stroke London, Derry stroke City of Derry, Derry Air. Call it what you like. Let's see, just before we pile on here. Thoughts in your belly. Sorry. Have you come from infinite ambition to your present lowered estate? What did I say? Let's have a wee quick look. Sorry, bear with me a second. Oh, right, that's still going away. Sorry, just trying to find that. Here we go. No. You come from ambition to your present lowered estate, didn't we? Right, got you. 59. Thank you. Oh, that's my fault. Yeah, it sounded right. I thought I've left that word out there. Thank you very much, Bojack. Oh, no, hang on. There we go. Oh, I've run out of all enough finishing the last chapter today. I've actually ran out of yellow highlighters today as well. And I use yellow as the dominant speaker within any given chapter of the main character. There we go. Right, sorry about that. Thank you very much. It is indeed. You come from infinite ambition to your present lowered estate. Didn't my grandmother warn you about infinity? It attracts us like a floodlight in the night, blinding us to the excesses it can inflict upon the infinite. Oh, sorry, the finite, yes. Let's see. Don't trust me. Farad'n, scribe and historian. And we've been told, yes, the other thing that we pick up as we've been heading down there, the Bene Gesserit are pragmatists. They're going to acquiesce to the God Emperor here. And that, yeah, he's got there's some of their traits. It's Jessica's training that's allowing Farad'n to kind of deal with this, I think, to give him a chance, I suppose, with these Atreides. We also get this, amused you and flattered your real talent, which is that of historian. You've a definite genius for reading the present in terms of the past. You've anticipated me on several occasions. And again, I think that's the interesting thing. That's got something to do with those genes of that family. And he's a close relative of, oh goodness, Casimir Fenring, sorry, as well. I think I still go with the Farad'n, I think has the no gene. And that's what's going to be bred in to the Atreides. Right, there we go, folks. Oh, yes, we also got the Bene Gesserit because we're just coming up on the second treachery. So we also get what the Bene Gesserit problem is from Leto. They believe that they can predict the course of evolution, but they overlook their own changes in the course of that evolution. They assumed that they would stand still while their breeding plan evolved. I have no such reflexive blindness. Look careful at me, Farad'n, for I am no longer human. Uh, okay, so we'll just run with there, actually. From there, we'll head on. So your sister assures me, Farad'n hesitated. Now, abomination? By the sisterhood's definition, perhaps. Harem is cruel and autocratic. I partake of his cruelty. Mark me well. I have the cruelty of the husbandman, and this human universe is my farm. Fremen once kept tame eagles as pets, but I'll keep a tame Farad'n. So I have here tame Farad'n is a tamed eagle, basically. In other words, he's the Imperial. He could have been the Emperor. Farad'n's face darkened. He doesn't like this. Beware of my claws, cousin. I well know my Stilgar would fall in time before your Fremen, but we wound you sorely, and there are jackals waiting to pick off the weak. And again, the use of the term jackals there, I suppose. I will use you well, that I promise, Leto said. He leaned forward. Did I not say I'm no longer human? Believe me, cousin, no children will spring from my loins, for I no longer have loins. And this forces my second treachery. As I've written there. Uh-oh, here we go. So treachery number 2. Farad'n, I like this bit here, by the way. Farad'n waited in silence, seeing at last the direction of Leto's argument. He's got it before it's explained. I shall go against every Fremen precept, Leto said. They will accept me because they can do nothing else. I kept you here under the lure of betrothal, but there will be no betrothal of you and Ganima. My sister will marry me. But you... Marry, I said. Ganima must continue the Atreides line. There's also the matter of the Bene Gesserit breeding program, which is now my breeding program. I refuse, Farad'n said. You refuse to father an Atreides dynasty? What dynasty? You'll occupy the throne for thousands of years. Now, this is the wee bit I think somebody was saying earlier. I think it was something I said I'd scribbled this down. But with Farad'n and Ganima finding this, being there, this part of this breeding program, the bit that I've scribbled down here, this is it in my book. Just as the Atreides line will from now on be the distaff line of the family. There we go. This bit here. Hey. And again, if we think about the inversions of things, especially with Leto, his father, Leto the First, and Leto the First's desire for a son, it's all about this, this male continuation here. This continuation of the Atreides line is going to be female here. You refuse to father an Atreides dynasty? What dynasty? You'll occupy the throne for thousands of years. And mold your descendants in my image. It will be the most intensive, the most inclusive training program in all of history. Will be an ecosystem in miniature. You see, whatever system animals choose to survive by must... Hang on, does this sound bad here? Hang on, bear with me. Pardon me, let me just read that again. Where's my paperweight gone? Good question. There you go. Right. Let me just check this. Sorry, that didn't sound right, and I think it might not be me. And mold your descendants in my image. It will be the most intensive, the most of history. Will be an ecosystem in miniature. You see, whatever system animals choose to survive by must be based on the pattern of interlocking communities. Interdependence, working together in the common design, which is the system. And this system will produce the most knowledgeable rulers ever seen. Dear, oh dear, that doesn't sound good, does it? The whole thing doesn't sound well. You will be an ecosystem in miniature, that's fine. You see, whatever, no, it's this bit, it's just the way it's written. It could do with some punctuation, I think. But let's try that again. You see, whatever system animals choose to survive by must be based on the pattern of interlocking communities. Yes, in dire need of a comma, isn't it? Must be based on working together. Sorry, must be based on the pattern of interlocking communities, interdependence, working together in the common design, which is the system. And this system will produce the most knowledgeable rulers ever seen. It's all systems, systems. Ooh, isn't it? Whatever system animals choose to survive by must be based on the pattern of interlocking community. And the leader of the husbandman, is mankind there been relegated to the animal again? You know, I'm not sure too many of us get to choose our systems that we survive in, if you like. Mold your descendants in my image. What does that mean? It will be the most intensive, the most inclusive training program in all of history. It will be an ecosystem in miniature. You see, whatever system animals choose to survive by must be based on the pattern of interlocking communities, interdependence, working together in the common design, which is the system, and this system will produce the most knowledgeable rulers ever seen. Everybody working within the system, knowing they're part of the system, knowing their processes, their stores, all of this kind of thing, and hey, we'll create fantastic leaders, rulers, the most knowledgeable rulers ever seen. You put fancy words on a most distasteful. He's cut off. Who will survive Kralazek? Leto asked. I promise you, Kralazek will come. You're a madman. You will shatter the Empire. Of course I will. I'm not a man, but I'll create a new consciousness in all men. I tell you that below the desert of Dune there's a secret place with the greatest treasure of all time. I do not lie. When the last worm dies and the last melange is harvested upon our sands, these deep treasures will spring up throughout our universe. As the power of the spice monopoly fades and the hidden stockpiles make their mark, new powers will appear throughout our realm. It is time humans learn once more to live in their instincts. I just put quickly next to that when he said, "I do not lie." I mean, when I said yes, he do, yes, he does. Leto has been great at deceiving people here. He's treacherous. He has outright lied, but in this case, he's not lying. By the way, I think it's just important to say, as much as he does lie, when he's saying, "I do not lie" here, I think that's a truth. There's going to be this great treasure of all time, etc., etc. He's going to create a new consciousness in all men. And I tell you that below the desert of Dune, there's a secret place with the greatest treasure of all time. You know, when the last worm dies and the last melange is harvested upon our sands, these deep treasures will spring up throughout our universe as the power of the spice monopoly fades and the hidden stockpiles make their mark. New powers will appear throughout our realm. It is time humans learn once more to live in their instincts. Now, that's the very important bit there. New powers will appear throughout our realm. Different groups are going to shift up and within the new power vacuum, I suppose. And we're going to get different. Yeah, we'll see. I suppose it's a good shift up with it. And I'm jumping too far ahead. I'm actually thinking of the honored Matres turning up and so on, things like that. So that's many years in the future, isn't it? Ganima took her arm from the back of the throne, crossed to Farad'n's side, took his hand. And I've written next this is an inversion of the end of Dune. As my mother was not wife, you will not be husband, Leto said. But perhaps there will be love, and that will be enough. Every day, each moment brings its changes, Ganima said. One learns by recognizing the moments. Farad'n felt the warmth of Ganima's tiny hand as an insistent presence. He recognized the ebb and flow of Leto's arguments. but not once had voice been used. It was an appeal to the guts, not to the mind. In other words, his instincts. Call it what you will, a hunch, women's intuition. Sorry, I love that from the Naked Gun. Is this what you offer for my Sardaukar? He asked. Much more, cousin. Sorry, much, much more, cousin. I offer your descendants the Imperium. I offer you peace. So, in a sense, very much, Farad'n's kind of getting a bit of a chat in the same way that Chani gets from Jessica at the end. History won't call us wives, but we're concubines, but history will call us wives. This kind of thing. Just as my mother's not going to be wife, you will not be husband. In other words, male concubine. But perhaps there will be love, and that will be enough. Each day, each moment brings its changes, Ganima said. One learns by recognizing the moments. And he offers in your descendants the Imperium, the Empire, and I offer you peace. He wants peace. Let him prepare for war. Here we go. What will be the outcome of your peace? This is it's opposite, Leto said, his voice calmly mocking, which is war. Farad'n shook his head. I find the price for my Sardaukar very high. Must I remain scribe, the secret father of your royal line? You must. Will you try to force me into your habit of peace? I will. I'll resist you every day of your life. But that's the function I expect of you, cousin. It's why I chose you. I'll make it official. I will give you a new name from this moment. You'll be called Breaking of the Habit, which in our tongue is Hark al-Ada. Come, cousin, don't be obtuse. My mother taught you well. Give me your Sardaukar. Give them, Ganima echoed. He'll have them one way or another. Farad'n heard fear for himself in her voice. Love, then? Leto asked, not for reason, but for an intuitive leap. Take them, Farad'n said. Indeed, Leto said. He lifted himself from the throne, a curiously fluid motion, as though he kept his terrible powers under most delicate control. Leto stepped down to Ganima's level, moved her gently until she faced away from him, turned and placed his back against hers. Pardon me, I've got a wee mistake here, which is immediately after he's been called Hark al-Ada. In my copy of the book, he's now going to be called Harku al-Ada. So this is with Leto. He says, note this, cousin, Harku al-Ada. So obviously it's Hark al-Ada. Note this, cousin, Hark al-Ada. This is the way it will always be with us. We'll stand thus when we are married, back to back, each looking outward from the other to protect the one thing which we have always been. He turned, looked mockingly at Farad'n, lowered his voice. Remember that, cousin, when you're face to face with my Ganima. Remember that when you whisper of love and soft things, when you're most tempted by the habits of my peace and my contentment, your back will remain exposed. So this is a physical demonstration, if you like, by Leto with Ganima of the Janus aspect, and telling him that she guards his back, he guards hers. And just in case you ever want to know, whenever you're with her, your back is exposed. It's a threat. And it's the last thing that Leto II will say in this book. Turning from them, he strode down the steps into the waiting courtiers, picked them up in his wake like satellites, and left the hall. And we have that's exit Leto II. And here we are as our last and final paragraph of the book. Ganima once more took Farad'n's hand, but her gaze looked beyond the far end of the hall long after Leto had left it. One of us had to accept the agony, she said, and he was always the stronger. Yeah, there we go, folks. That's the end of the book. That's the end of the Children of Dune book club. That we managed to finish it on the same day. Did I scribble down this episode 10 p.m. GMT +1 on the 9th of the 10th, 2025? It says, "Good luck, Russ, from your future self in the past to you in the now. Be careful and move house." Quid agus predator agus respigate fighting. There we go, folks. We've made it. That's been a journey. So that's it in terms of the book club. We can have a wee bit of a natter, I suppose, about Harem in a minute or two. But if anybody's, I'll read some comments, and if anybody's got any wee questions or anything. But that is us at the end of our Children of Dune book club. We have completed, just to show you, got them behind us. Just close this for a moment. Well, not completed this one, but I'm not keeping this for a room for a bit of stuff. But this is what we've got here in terms of notebooks. Oh, since we started way back in 2022, most of these are filled completely. So we've got our 4 for Dune, if you can see them there, 2 for Dune Messiah, and we're always the start of our 4th book. We're about a third of the way in, so about 3 1/3 notebooks, if you like, of discovering things, fixing mistakes, and doing all sorts of things. And there we go. So it's taken us a few years, hasn't it? I suppose, bear with me 1 wee second. Oh, goodness gracious me. What have we got next? What have we got now? Do I have a new text I've gone over? It looks like not. Look. One on the side, one on Children of Dune. I'm always curious about how many of these I have. I think I've had a God Emperor or 2 fall apart on me as well. But where are we going next, I suppose? Is this? We're going to the God Emperor soon. In all honesty, we'll probably take a couple of weeks just to chill out, etc., and relax a bit from doing this, and get set up with. I'll need a new notebook for our children, our God Emperor of Dune book club, I suppose. But yeah, there we go, folks. It's a bit of I feel a wee bit of an achievement tonight. I've got myself a couple of candies. I didn't get my Ferraros, unfortunately. But give us a wee sense of achievement, I suppose. Yeah. But I'll check your comments, and at the same time, we can have a wee natter about Harem in a moment or two. But yeah, thank you very much, everybody, for all your an awful lot of help from you. Again, as always, you've been fantastic. Couldn't do this without you. Goodness, we've got you all annotating the Dune series. I'm going to tell you something before I read on with the rest of your comments here, is that it has occurred to me, as we've just finished the first Great Dune Trilogy, as it's known. But it occurred to me that I must keep an eye out for a modern copy of God Emperor of Dune. I love this cover, by the way. This is my favorite of the covers from that one. I think that's gorgeous. Absolutely delightful. Let's see, what was I saying there? Yeah, it's occurred to me with the various whatever's happened to these books, the first 3 Dune books at the very least. With the amount of mistakes in them in both. Generally, these copies all tend to have the same mistakes, etc. And then we've got our Berkeley editions, etc. There's a few others out there. And it struck me that depending on how you'd read the Dune series, no matter what, nobody's read it properly at all, except us. Because using the different editions as we've gone, with you guys helping with the text and stuff, in these notebooks, etc., we have annotated the heck out of this stuff, but we've literally fixed the text as we've gone. And what we've actually done is occurred to me, is it quite possible that everyone else out there who has read Dune has never had a proper read through the books, and that by doing what we've done, you guys who've been here from the start, if you followed us all the way through, as far as I can tell, this has not been fixed. So we've fixed it as we went. So we've read the Dune series the way it's supposed to have been written. Supposed to have been read, I suppose. Sorry. And I'm still baffled by the level of publishing mistakes, publishing errors, huge amount of them, and actively changes made to the book, paragraphs missing, words altered. Um, it's you could argue, from my own point of view, I would say it either looks like the act of a very, very incompetent editor somewhere along the lines, or almost an act of literary sabotage. It's horrendous. Um, so we've even had characters' names different, etc. We've within Dune Messiah, we've got a different book altogether, which is it's been bonkers. It's been a bit of a journey, but it occurred to me that by doing it this way, by approaching these books this way, we've fixed them and edited and tidied and all of that as we went. Which it's been a real surprise to me actually how much that's been there and how much meaning can change within the books as well. So it's just to let you know that by doing this, if you've been here from the beginning and you've gone through these three books with me, reading along with them each week, is that you've actually read a fully corrected version of the first Great Dune trilogy, which it looks like has never hit the shelves. To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure about that statement, but to me it looks like there is not a fixed copy of Dune. But you've read one here, so congratulations. And it gives us a little bit of something different, doesn't it? Something a little bit unique, I think. And it almost feels like a nice reward for myself and for all of you, actually, for having done all of this, that we've actually got to have the privilege of reading these books the way they should have been read. And I think it wouldn't have been possible without all of you. So I think it's fantastic. So thank you very much. I'll just catch up with your comments here first of all. Let's see. Hoping there's some here. Oh yes, we jump back to Bojack with the infinite ambition to our present lowered state. Jaya said all the varied mistakes combined create our false reality. These techniques were meant to describe and help us relate to reality, but we accept the descriptions as best being the truth's medium versus message. Lots of Old Testament mystical references in these last few chapters. Deserts of Zen, Solomon, Harem, beginning and end are one. The only ruling governing creativity is the act of creation itself. If Leto's human farm, all people become the farm animals. Yes, indeed. And therefore subject to the cruelty of the husbandman. Lord Krog saying a bit late here. Hello's all. Hi, Lord Krog. How you doing? Thanks very much for joining us. We've just hit the end of the chapter there, the end of the book, which is a little bit of a milestone. I wonder what Leto's great treasure under the desert is, metaphorical or real. I think I can remember that it's knowledge, isn't it? And his oh goodness, well, I'm not too sure. I'm going to have to read the book. Actually, I'll not say that, but I think it's a combination of things, isn't it? And it's isn't it a hidden melange stash possibly as well? But it says his spools and things, I think. I said one of the things I wanted to point out is no ending for Irulan here within this book. And we consider Irulan to be one of our main historians, if you like, within the Dune trilogy. She's been swapped out for Farad'n. Farad'n's taking the role of concubine in Perpetua, if you like, in perpetuity, for the House Atreides. And we're going to breed these humans, these leaders, way down. Pardon me. It's a fascinating speech. I love the God Emperor here. I mean, this is still the 10-year-old walking about like he owns the place. He's not become a worm yet, but there's almost that sense. I almost imagine him with a wee kind of wormy tail as he's leaving there, turning from them. He strode down the steps into the waiting courtiers, picked them up in his wake like satellites, and left the hall. Can almost picture him like that, you know. But it's going to take a while, isn't it? Bear with me a second. Yes, indeed. Fragrant. Fragrant is a word associated with harem. Much as it's associated with our interesting immortal friend from this chapter, Lu Tong Pen. Yeah, I've been actually trying to find some old Egyptian language sources actually. Pardon me. No, sorry, excuse me a wee second, folks. I'm just going to go look something up here if I can find it. No, all right, here we go. Now here's one of our candidates. I suppose the big problem for me is Frank, in terms of who's harem, by the way, is Frank's description of it. And it's particularly, I suppose, it's the dynasty that lasts for 3,000 years. I find it hard to line that up with any historical figure whatsoever. The Egyptian pharaohs have tons of dynasties. Sorry, I gotta stop using that word, haven't I? Got picked up on it the other week. A lot of, sorry. Let me see. How many? I thought it was over 30, isn't it? Let's see. The by the way, yeah, the golden Horus, and I've got the HRM association with a Horus thing, by the way. So I often thought it was something to do with Horus as well. But my old argument was that it's something to do with Cheops, who's known for his cruelty, etc. And I couldn't find the evidence, but I'm going to keep looking. It's one of those ones I don't want to sort of give up on. Let's see. Bear with me a second. Oh, right. Hang on. Sorry. Wikipedia is being unyielding. No. Not helpful. Let's just ask Google how many Egyptian dynasties were there? 33, as according to this, typically considered to be 33 Egyptian dynasties. The first 30 originating from the historian Manetho's work, and the last two being the Ptolemaic and the Argead of the Greek Macedonian dynasties. Some pre-dynastic rulers. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been checking out some of the Egyptology stuff. It's fascinating. I know very little about it. And what little stuff I do know about Egypt is kind of where it bumps into the Greeks, etc. This kind of thing. But again, in terms of how long these dynasties last, they're not long. A couple of 100 years, maybe tops, I think. Dynasty 1, 250 years. Bear with me a second now. China sent me some stuff on Hiram. This is from the Encyclopedia of Biblical Personalities, anthologized from the Talmud, Midrash, and Rabbinic writings. And this is to do with Hiram. Hiram, let's see, superseding it. It said, the Holy One, blessed is he, to Hiram, king of Tyre. I had you in mind when I created orifices for elimination in man To curb your pride, I made man dependent of on his digestive system. Others say he said, I had said you in mind when I decreed death upon Adam. It's from Bavor Bazar 75a. When greatness was given to Hiram, king of Tyre, he said, I am a god, I sit in the seat of God. That's Ezekiel 28:2. Four deemed themselves godlike and were molested like women: Pharaoh, Hiram, Joash, and Nebuchadnezzar. With wisdom, Hiram built himself a palace between the Adriatic Sea and the Mediterranean. Hiram, king of Tyre, entered the sea, made himself 40 iron pillars of equal length, and placed them facing one another. Then he made 7 levels to parallel the 7 firmaments, each separated from the next by a duct of water. He also made a throne, beasts, thunder, comets, and lightning. In the first level, 500 cubits by 500 cubits of glass, he made a sun, moon, and stars. The second of iron, he made 1,000 cubits by 1,000 cubits. In the third of iron, 1,500 cubits by 1,500 cubits he made. Oh, hang on a second. Can I get any more of that there? So just references to Hiram here. We've got more. He made round stones which crashed together. Oh, I think it's a continuation. Crashed against each other to produce the sound of thunder. The fourth of lead, he made 2,000 cubits by 2,000 cubits. The fifth of copper, 2,500 cubits by 2,500 cubits. The sixth of silver, 3,000 cubits by 3,000 cubits. And the seventh of gold, 3,500 cubits by 3,500 cubits. He set precious stones and pearls a cubit square. It was transparent. On one side there was lightning, on the other comets. The structure would shake, sending the stones crashing into one another to produce the sound of thunder. When it was built, Hiram seated himself upon the highest level. Excuse me. Said the Holy One, blessed is he, to Ezekiel, son of man, tell Hiram, king of Tyre, why are you proud? You are born of women. Said Ezekiel, master of the universe, how can I go to him when he is suspended in midair? Thereupon the Holy One, blessed is he, sent a wind which blew through Ezekiel's hair and raised him up to Hiram. Upon seeing Ezekiel, Hiram was frightened and shaken. Who raised you up here? He asked. Ezekiel replied, the Holy One, blessed is he, has commanded me to tell you, why are you proud? You are born of women. Said Hiram, I am born of women? I will live forever. Just as the Holy One, blessed is he, is in the sky, so am I. Moreover, many kings have died, and I have outlived them. 21 kings of the house of David, 21 of the house of Israel, 5 prophets, and 10 high priests. I have buried them all, and I am still alive. Am I not a god? What was his end? The Holy One, blessed is he, incited Nebuchadnezzar against him. Nebuchadnezzar consorted with Hiram's mother before Hiram's very eyes and deposed Hiram from his throne. Every day Nebuchadnezzar cut 2 pieces out of Hiram's flesh, dipped them in vinegar, and fed them to Hiram, so that he died a horrible death. And what became of that palace? The Holy One, blessed is he, caused the earth to open and swallow the structure in order to store it for the righteousness in the world to come. So that's a whole bunch of stuff on Hiram, who's a good candidate for Hiram here. But let's just bring him up here. Oh goodness, my eyes are going here. Hang on. Let's see here. King of Tyre. There he is. Hiram first. Now, there's more to Hiram than this, by the way, folks. Let me just copy you a link here. Here's the Wikipedia link for you. King of Tyre. It's just in relation to the being a helper, if you like. So just quickly, in relation to this, Hiram, my brother, is exalted. Hebrew is Hiram, also called Hiram or Huram. Is the Phoenician king of Tyre according to the Hebrew Bible. His regnal years have been calculated by some as 980 to 947 BC in succession to his father Abubal. Hiram was succeeded as king of Tyr by his son Baal Esser I. He is mentioned in the writings of Menander of Ephesus, early 2nd century BC, as preserved in Josephus's Against Apion, which adds to the biblical account. According to Josephus, Hiram lived for 53 years and reigned for 34. Now, very quickly, in relation to some of that, that would not line up. I wonder, hang on. I would, yeah, first. Oh, okay. Well, it's not going to be Nebuchadnezzar II, the one that we know really well from the Bible. That he's a lot later. Nebuchadnezzar the First, however, is probably the kingdom we're looking at there. He's the guy. Nebuchadnezzar, meaning Nabu, protect my eldest son. Fourth king of the second dynasty of Islam, fourth dynasty of Babylon. Ruled for 22 years according to the Babylonian king list. His dates are 1121 to 1100 BC, so they don't really line up, do they? Anyway, let's have a look at Hiram. Yes, where are we? During Hiram's reign, Tyr grew from a satellite of Sidon into the most important of the Phoenician cities and the holder of a large trading empire. He suppressed the rebellion of the first Tyrian colony at Utica near the later site of Carthage. And the reference there against Apion 1:18. The Hebrew Bible says that he allied himself with David, king of Judah, and his artisans built David's palace in Jerusalem after his capture of the city. The palace was built using Lebanon cedar. After David's death, Hiram maintained his alliance with David's son and successor, Solomon, again as an equal, meaning my brother. Sorry, what's that word there? Through the alliance with Solomon, Hiram ensured himself access to major trade routes to Egypt, Arabia, and Mesopotamia. The two kings also joined openly a trade route over the Red Sea, connecting the Israelite harbor of Ezion-Geber with a land called Ophir. Some schools of thought suggest that this land of Ophir was in the port city of Sappara, near modern-day Mumbai, or formerly Bombay, in India. According to the Bible, both kings grew rich through this trade, and Hiram sent Solomon architects, workmen, cedar wood, and gold to build the first temple in Jerusalem. Josephus says that he also extended the Tyrian harbor, enlarged the city by joining the two islands on which it was built, and constructed a royal palace and temple for Melkart. There's some stuff about his reign there, hypothesis regarding the chronology. So just this useful helper, I feel like. Ally and potential facilitator of Solomon's golden age. This is what makes him an interesting candidate, I think. Just the laborers, etc. Basically everything that's brought. There's very much a kind of useful and equal relationship between Hiram and Solomon. So here we go. Josephus credits Hiram with quelling a rebellion in the Phoenician colony of Utica. Rabbinic literature identifies Hiram as one of the four men who pretend to be gods. Oh, that's interesting. I wonder who the other three are. Nebuchadnezzar was equally victorious in his expedition against Tyr, whose king Hiram, his stepfather, he dethroned and put to a painful death. Limited historical evidence exists outside the Bible. It suggests a period of prosperity and expansion for Tyr under Hiram's leadership. The potential alliance with Israel could have provoked Tyr with access to valuable resources and new markets. Conversely, Solomon might have benefited from Tyr's skilled workforce and experience in maritime trade and construction. Further research is necessary to definitively establish the nature and extent of their collaboration. Regardless, Hiram's reign likely marked a period of significant cultural and economic exchange between the two kingdoms, with a lasting impact on the region. And there's an image just below that. What's this? The tomb of Hiram, Kabur Hiram, dates from the Persian period, 4 to 6 centuries after the presumed time of Hiram. It is built 6 kilometers southeast of Tyre, near the village of Hanoi, on the road to Quana, and has the form of a colossal limestone sarcophagus on a pedestal. There's a picture. There you go. King Hiram is a character in the time travel story Ivory and Apes and Peacocks, 1983, by Poul Anderson, who's a friend of Frank Herbert's. Poul Anderson, there you go. There's a little connection for you. Poul Anderson is a character in the Dune series, isn't he? He's one of our science fiction anagrams. Goodness gracious. So we've got, that's some of the stuff. King, let's see, back up there. I just thought I'd pass that on there. It's one of our possible candidates. But yeah, it's probably Frank's language has kind of got me thinking of a pharaoh and so on. And as I said, I think I found something linguistically a long time ago, but I can't find it at the minute, but I'm going to keep looking. So my candidate was always Cheops, who is Khufu. But again, no big dynasty for thousands of years, this kind of thing. But their influence does go on. Khufu is one of our great pyramid builders from the fourth dynasty, I think. But the Greeks call him Cheops, and it's the name of the pyramid chess game in Dune, the Dune series. Oh, hang on. Chai said, that's possibly me, Chai. I will resist you every day of my life. You read your life. Right, thank you. Let me check. Every day of your life. That's exactly what I wrote. Where's my book? Could well have been me. Let's see. Number 80. I'll resist you every day of your life is what I've got. And what have you got? So that's wrong. I'll resist you every day of your life. And you've got my life. Okie dokie. No, genuinely. Where are we? Where are we? Come on, focus for me. Let's try that. Sorry, move a bit. Can we see it? There we go. I resist you every day. So it should be my thank you, Chai. Oh, for goodness sake. There we go. Where was that one? Scribble that one up. Yeah, we had one called diminish as instead of distinguish, I think, in this chapter. A couple of, and Harkal had his name wrong in the second instance. Every day of my life. There we go. Thank you. I spoke too soon when I was saying I've still missed one. Thank you very much, Chaya. That's the whole point. People with different copies, it helps us find little things, you know. Brilliant stuff. Carlos said, I think it refers to the Horde of the Melange found in Heretics of Jim by Dario Drade, along with some hidden messages from her from Leto. Yeah, it's kind of histories and his special messages, I think, for the Bene Gesserit, I think. King Hiram is in Kings 1, Chapter 5. Chasen, and I agree, it's both physical and metaphysical treasures in the desert. Yes, indeed. Again, I'm looking forward to refreshing my memory. I'd tell you what, folks, I just finished Grey Lensman. What a cracking read. And I'm reading a very awkward large book of the Lensman series. I just immediately started the next one, second stage Lensman, but I was just reading, I just checked the date on it and just went, this stuff's nuts. It's absolutely brilliant, full on. The established kind of scientific realism of the universe is really good. The action's great. It's always escalating. This is the really good stuff. And just some of the ideas in it, I was going, and I just looked at it 1939, and I just sat back and whenever I know they're from that period, but I know a couple of them. I was written as late as the 1960, I think, but I was gobsmacked that what I just read was from 1939. Just wow, you know. As much as I live in this modern world, I can imagine what it must have been like to read the Lensman stories back in 1939, especially with war looming in Europe and stuff like that. But what a fantastic book, by the way. I absolutely loved it. I love that old-fashioned sci-fi, but it's really well done. Trying to get a landsman to get married. Dear oh dear. I've just started the next book and they immediately put the kilter in the wedding. Bojack said the God Emperor's journals mentally transcribed with Ixian machine or something, I think. Yeah, that's ringing bells. Christopher Christ said in Freemasonry, Hiram is mentioned as almost as equal in terms to Solomon and helped to build the temple. Chirok is saying Hiram is also known as Hira. It's the entry above Hiram on the page I sent. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to do a wee bit more, and I'm going to keep this, as I said, open. I've got stuff, but I'm still investigating, and I'm really investigating the name, the HRM, the root. In fact, hang on, just very quickly. Who did I find? Did I bookmark any of these? Let's see. Somebody had suggested Horemheb. Horemheb. Meaning, this is it. You see, harem. I've got a pharaoh for you. Horemheb. Hang on. That's yeah. Dun, 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 dun. Here's another candidate. Boom. If you have a wee look at the Wikipedia page there, folks, you'll see Horemheb also spelled Haremheb, or Haremhab. Ancient Egyptian Haremheb. Now, I keep getting AI telling me that harem is not an ancient Egyptian, and it is. And it means Horus, by the way. And this is where I was going with it. Because we then get Horus names, if you like, attached to pharaohs. So Haremheb, if you like, and that's our harem there, means Horus is in jubilation. The last pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of Egypt. 18th dynasty is a good one in terms of, I think it's a good one in terms of mummies, isn't it? Something like that. Evidentially, I think we know a good more about the 8th. There's a few of the dynasties that we know a good bit about. The 4th one and the 18th one are the kind of ones that I would have known a bit about. Just general knowledge, you know. So Haremheb, meaning Horus is in jubilation, is the last pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, which dates from 1550 to 1292 BC. Once again, we've got no dynasties lasting for 3,000 years. He had no relation to the preceding royal family other than by marriage to Muad'Dib, Muad'Dib, who is thought, though disputed, to have been the daughter of his predecessor, A. He is believed to be in common birth. Before he became pharaoh, Horemheb was the commander-in-chief of the army under the reigns of Tutankhamun and I. After his accession to the throne, he reformed the Egyptian state, and it was during his reign that official action against the preceding Amarna rulers began, which is why he is considered the ruler who restabilized his country after the troublesome and divisive Amarna period. He demolished monuments of Akhenaten, reusing the rubble in his own building projects, and usurped monuments of Tutankhamun and A. Horemheb presumably had no surviving sons, as he is appointed as his successor his vizier Parmesu, who would assume the throne as Ramesses I. So he's an interesting chap as well. Look at some statues there. So where I was going with Harem being a pharaoh was, I can't remember now if it was, this is what I've been trying to hunt down. It was from some sort of Horus name or something like that, and a whole bunch of pharaohs attach um, the Horus name, if you like, to their own. And Horus, let's see, Heru, Har, Her, or Hor, in ancient Egyptians, one of the most significant ancient Egyptian deities. He served many functions, most notably as the god of kingship, healing, protection, the sun, and the sky. He's worshipped from at least the late prehistoric Egypt until the Ptolemaic kingdom and Roman Egypt. Different forms of Horus are recorded in history, and they are treated as distinct gods by Egyptologists, which is interesting. These various forms may be different manifestations of the same multi-layered deity in which certain attributes of syncretic relationships are emphasized, not necessarily in opposition, but complementary to one another, consistent with how the ancient Egyptians viewed the multiple facets of reality. He was most often depicted as a falcon, most likely as a lanar falcon or a peregrine falcon, or as a man with a falcon head. And the earliest recorded form of Horus is the tutelary deity of Nekhen in Upper Egypt, who is first known as a national god. Is the first known national god, specifically related to the ruling pharaoh, who in time came to be regarded as a manifestation of Horus in life and Osiris in death. The most commonly encountered family relationships describes Horus as the son of Isis and Osiris, and he plays a key role in the Osiris myth, as Osiris is heir and the rival to Set, the murderer and brother of Osiris. In another tradition, Hathor is regarded as his mother and sometimes as his wife. Practicing Interpretatio Romana, Claudius A. Linnaeus wrote that the Egyptians called the god Apollo Horus in their own language. However, Plutarch, elaborating further on the same tradition reported by the Greeks, specified that the one Horus whom the Egyptians equated with the Greek Apollo was in fact Horus the Elder, a primordial form of Horus whom Plutarch distinguishes from both Horus and Harpocrates. And if you have a wee look at that, then you can see the Haru with the falcon. Haru, Old Egyptian, Early Middle Egyptian. Let's see, distance of one. So it's a name that we can possibly attach to a bunch of, I'm pretty sure we can attach it to a bunch of pharaohs, actually. Forms of Horus, there we go. Harem Akhet. Yeah, this was somewhere where I was going with this sort of stuff. Here we go. Harem Akhet is Horus in the horizon. Harem Akhet, or Harmachis in Greek, represented the dawn and the early morning sun. He is often depicted as a sphinx with the head of a man, like the Great Sphinx of Giza, or as a Hierocosphinx, a creature with a lion's body and a falcon's head and wings, sometimes with the head of a lion or a ram. The latter providing a link to the god Khepri, the rising sun. It was delivered that he was the inspiration for the Great Sphinx of Giza, constructed under the order of Khafre, whose head it depicts. So there's another harem there. Harem Akhet, Horus in the horizon. Harem Akhet. I didn't do too badly with those Egyptian words. And I'm still on the quest. But yes, indeed, Horus himself perhaps is a candidate there for harem, if you like. Origin mythology. Let me see. And again, there's that mother-father thing. There's, you see, Osiris depicted as lapis lazuli pillar. Oh, that's lovely looking, isn't it? In the center, flanked by Horus on the left and Isis on the right, in 22nd Dynasty statue. So there you go. So that's another possible candidate for harem. Still not Cheops. And I don't know. My memory going way back when I found this, but I've lost it, by the way. But I'm still having a look. But it was something to do with Cheops and something to do with the Horus name for Cheops. That was originally what made me identify it as harem. But there's three options alone for us there, folks. Two of which are possibly, well, one mythological, one pharaonic. and one's a king of Tyr. Mm. Well, of course, the word can be forbidden. It can forbidden. It can also be fragrant. And wasn't that something to do with our friend at the front there, or immortal? It was fragrant, fragrance. And we also have, I suppose, that relationship with Osiris, Isis, and Horus, if you like, with Ganymede and Leto. It's a mythological overlay of them. And I need to learn more about it, actually. I really, really would love a big book. I must have a look on Egyptian mythology, And I'm kind of, having read these books, by the way, folks, I've kind of gotten into being a little bit interested in the Assyrian empires as well. We've covered so many different things here, And as Christopher said in Freemasonry, said we're going to be encountering, I think, a lot of esoteric stuff with the potential for the God Emperor in the next book club, I think, as well. I think our reading's going to change a bit, if you like. I wonder what kind of myths that Frank's going to plunder. Excuse me. Also known as Hera as well. Let's scribble that one there. Yeah, he seems an interesting chap. There's Mickey saying hello. Hi, Mickey. How you doing? Here we go. And pronunciation as well, Chai. This is another thing I've been thinking about too, is it might not be how we say. Chai saying in Hebrew it's not Huram. It's a guttural letter, like churum, like it's like a tree, ch, like a German pronunciation of ach, like karum, like that. Is that right? Like the composer Bach, karum, like that. I'm giving it a go. That sounds, yeah. Let me scribble that down. Giving me ideas. I don't know what I found all those years ago. I said I've lost it. I found some stuff from my PhD. Actually, it was my while looking for it. Not that there's much survived. I ended up using most of it for scrap paper with my students. I think is what I've done with it. But it was just some comments on my PhD, which I thought were quite funny. It's a linguistic link to your suggestion of Cheops. Yes, thank you. Cheops is Cheops is someone that Frank knows about. It's I don't know. It was a long time finding. It was a big mystery, and it took me a lot of work. And that was the thing that I came up with. And I had it was like a scarab. What do you call it? Scarab name. There's different types, isn't there? Let me see. Get me a pharaoh here. Bear with me a wee second. Give me a pharaoh. There's one. Pardon me. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'll try him. What have we got? No. Suddenly, all of a sudden, not saying. There we go. There's a cartouche. Cartouches and is it saskets or something they're called? I'm sorry. Let's have a look at Cheops. Khufu, there you are. I gotta stop calling them Cheops, don't I? Khufu, also known as Cheops, Sufis, Canubis, Sophe. Let's see. No, this must have changed. Yeah, Kunum. Was it Harum? Khufu's name was dedicated to god Kunum. Cartouche names: Kunum, Khufu, Kawayafu, Kunum, Khufu. There's a whole lot of stuff there, but I know I didn't find anything here before. I was looking for cartouche names. There we go. Cartouche names, throne names, Sajid B, ancient Egyptian, 5 royal names of pharaohs. This kind of thing. That's I think where I'd have found it originally. And do you know what? It might have even been in a museum thing or something. I don't know. But I'll not drive myself mad with it, if you know what I mean, guys. I'll keep looking, I'll keep searching, and See what I can find. Let's see. Horus of Gold. Some Horus names. There we go. Syrinx. Yeah, Horus' name is the oldest known and used crest of ancient Egyptian rulers. It belongs to the great five names of an Egyptian pharaoh. However, modern Egyptologists and linguists are starting to prefer the more neutral term Serach name. This is because not every pharaoh placed the falcon, which symbolized the deity Horus, atop his or in some cases her Serach. 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 So it was something like that I think. Because we have that association of harem or karam perhaps with Horus. So possible also that it could be Horus himself as a semi mythological historical king. Who knows? But it's again possibly that we've had some representations within the Dune series where the character has been a composite of two or three different characters from whistling away there from history, Pardon me, folks. Just a chaos, yes. Oh, I hope it did okay there, Chai. I've always read Chani's name as having a more guttural Chani as well. Chani is then rooted in the Hebrew root ch and meaning grace. Oh. I've got a lot of interest in. I must show you guys something sometime, if I can actually unpack it without wrecking it. As I have a Cambridge Ancient History here, somewhere. Oh, it's this one. I'm not going to open it now, but it has. I've got. Oh, it's all sorts of ancient alphabets in it. Oh. It's one of my favorite books. Cambridge Ancient History Volume 4 is the Persian Empire in the West. This is they don't make books like this anymore. There's a lot of kind of fold out maps and alphabets and stuff like that. If you see it, I mean, they're actually incredible. But I'd love to see a modern version of one of these. But they've got all sorts of maps and alphabets and stuff. And things like that. It must have a wee nosy, but I'll see if I can. If I can fold it out, I actually might try and scan it or something like that. But yeah, it's a. Ooh. Do you know what I've got of the Cambridge Ancient History? It's got the Oxford History of the Classical World as well. It's a good book. That's a good one. Ooh. But yeah, just this big sheet that folds out, and it's got about 30 or 40 different ancient alphabets upon it, Next thing we see, I can get over the process. Oh, that'll be great. Yes, indeed. It's always a bit tricky trying to figure these things out from just the text messaging system that we have here, But I always have a go anyway. I think it's fun pronunciation and giving a go with languages, new words, and seeing how they move about, within different groups of languages and stuff. But it's certainly fun investigating words, I think. Etymology is it's just a hobby with me. I just love words of all sorts, and pronunciation. I've mispronounced a few people's names over my life during my life that I'm quite embarrassed by when I got older, but nobody had ever corrected me or taught me otherwise, so I never felt that bad about it. But it's interesting how some names get mispronounced, And we've got a lot of weird ones over here in Ireland. Chaya as well. We've got all sorts of funny letters and names and stuff. People have a lot of bother over here. But there we go, folks. So I thought that would be a wee bit of fun just to have a wee bit of a chat about. And if anybody else, by the way, I've got pages left in this notebook. So if anybody's got any other suggestions, I'm going to keep looking anyway. But I thought there's three. Do we get three candidates there tonight? Quite possibly. And again, it's supposed to be someone that's been helping Leto in that sense. And if we do think of one of the characters that Leto II is going to be based on as we hit God Emperor of Dune, is Solomon. And so for him to have a helper like Haram here makes kind of sense, if it makes it a possible candidate, if you like. Yeah, but at the same time, we've also been told, I think, if I recall, that this helper turned on Leto, along with the rest of them at a certain point. And I think as we do go into God Emperor of Dune, how do we nosy this before? I think that we have a different helper. I think, who, if I can remember correctly, is an Assyrian. I think it was one of the Ashner Manipols or something like that, perhaps. Excuse me. I keep a wee folder on my computer. I call it Zen stuff here. There it is. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, don't do that, Russell. Hang on. Sorry, I nearly left you there, folks. Again, Ashur is the creator of the air, is what his name means. Ashurbanipal, king of Neo-Assyrian Empire from 669 to his death in 631. I'll have to double check that, but I think he's the and I don't know if it's a continuity error or not, but I think it's him that is our dominant helper in God Emperor of Dune. So there we go, folks. Goodness gracious. I need fluids. Hiram breaks into hang on. Hiram breaks into two word chai, hang on. Sorry, chai. Meaning life, and ram meaning elevated or lofty. It's an interesting little thing that he's dropped in here, with Haran, I think, and he gives us enough information to tease us, I think, about it. And I said little things there. What do we have? His dynasty lasted 3,000 years. God King, autocratic and cruel, possibly a pharaoh of Egypt, because we're really heading into the pharaonic kind of, I suppose, approach, aren't we? Sorry, I've got to stop typing in Cheops and type in Khufu. Let's see. Khufu. Pardon me. Yeah, there's something about. I thought Khufu's reputation kind of lined up with Haram's as well. Pardon me. Kurumkuf. If it's Kurum. No. It's a strange. I'm going to think another. Yeah. I'm going to put that C in there to remind me. Right. The languages are fascinating, aren't they? What's Farad'n to say about him? There we go. The Greek historian Herodotus instead depicts Khufu as a heretic and a cruel tyrant. In his literary work Historia, Book 2, chapters 124 to 126, he writes, as long as Ramphsinitos was king, as they told me, there was nothing but orderly rule in Egypt, and the land prospered greatly. But after him, Cheops became king over them and brought them to every kind of suffering. He closed all the temples, and this he kept the priests from sacrificing there, and he forced all the Egyptians to work for him. Pardon me. So some were ordered to draw stones from the sorry, I've got the hiccups. Stone from the stone quarries in the Arabian mountains to the Nile, and others he forced to receive the stones after they'd been carried over the river in boats and to draw them to those called the Libyan mountains. And they worked by 100,000 men at a time for each 3 months continually. Of this oppression, there passed 10 years while the causeway was made by which they drew the stones, which causeway they built, and it is a work not much less, as it appears to me, than the pyramid. Pardon me. Okay, goes on to about the length. Told the builder, which he calls them sepulchral chambers for himself in an island, having conducted the channel from the Nile. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Oh goodness, there's a very big quote here from Herodotus. Burroughs declared in Egyptian writing how much he was spent on radishes and onions and leeks for the workmen. And if I remember correctly, what the interpreter said while reading this inscription for me, a sum of 1,600 silver talents was spent. Cheops, moreover, came to such a pitch of evilness that, being in want of money, he sent his own daughter to a brothel in order to obtain from those who came a certain amount of money. How much it was, they did not tell me. But she may not have obtained the sum that was appointed by her father. She also formed a design for herself privately to leave behind her a memorial. She requested each man who came into her to give her one stone for her building project, and of these stones, they told me, the pyramid was built which stands in front of the Great Pyramid in the middle of the three, each side being 150 feet in length. Let's see, depicted direct follower as Khafre is likewise evil, and that he is. This is his son rules after him. Direct follower, likewise evil, and ruled for 56 years. Herodotus writes, Cheops was dead. After Cheops was dead, his brother Khephren succeeded to the royal throne. The king followed the same manner as the other and ruled for 56 years. Here they reckon altogether 106 years, during which they say that there was nothing but evil for the Egyptians, and the temples were kept closed and not opened during all that time. Herodotus has closed the story of the evil kings in chapter 128 with the words, these kings of the Egyptians, because of their hate against them, are not very willing to say their names. What's more, they even call the pyramids after the name of Philotas, the shepherd, who at the time pastured flocks in those regions. That's an interesting little story from Herodotus there in relation to Cheops. But there's just their cruelty. Cheops and Khafre are not seen as very nice people at all. I'm going to bed too, Chai. I'm just about to finish up. Thank you very much. Chai is saying we're inching towards 3 a.m. here. I need to sign off. Thanks, Doc. You've done a great job on this first trilogy. I'm grateful for all your time and energy of our book club, as am I, Chai. Good night, all. Good night. Thank you very much, and look after yourself, Chai. Thanks a lot for all your contributions. It's been amazing. Julian saying Ashton Banapal is the best guest. Yeah, I think so. At the same time, there's no relationship whatsoever to the harem, Karen, all of that thing, and it could be a continuity problem with Frank, possibly, or it's possible that he ditches harem and goes for Ashton Banapal. Oh, so I'm going to have to get reading it, God Emperor of June. But what on earth is that there doing? What's that mean? It says +1. Well, engage. Oh, for goodness sake. Stupid thing. So I've got a wee thing down here and I says, what's that? And it's telling me to engage with my audience. That's what I've been doing. There we go. Well, listen, folks, it's coming up to, goodness, 12 to 1 here. And it's now the 10th of October, 2025. So that's when we really finish this. I'll put that in the book. But there we go. We've done it. And we're at the end of another Frank Herbert book. We've completed the first Great Dune Trilogy. We've even found a few wee mistakes on this very last episode within the book. So that's it. We've done it. We've all three. We've filled a whole chunk of these notebooks, which will help us understand these, and hopefully we can refer back to, And it's, as I said, it's been a pleasure. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed this, and I got a sense that we've done something a little bit unique with these books. But also, hopefully, we've all understood it a little bit better. I certainly have. I've learned loads from doing this. I've learned about all sorts, beyond the joke, what we've learned about exploring Frank Herbert's books. It's taken us everywhere, into myths, into ancient histories around the world, science and technology, ideas, psychology, mm, and just a rollicking great adventure story as well, I think. But what a good book. I really like Children of Dune. I really enjoyed that, as it goes back to some of the things that we have seen in the Dune series before, and kind of almost leaves us in a similar situation as Dune did. We've got a brand new emperor. We've got a concubine who's been, it'll be okay. And I'm wondering which copy of the book I'm going to be working with. I actually really like this cover as well. But the shame is these little pictures are so small. Not sure who. Oh, that's Robert Nicholas is the artist there. They're very good. But pity they're always small. Is it George Grace? Isn't that chap called it? But yes, indeed. So, folks, coming up then, I suppose what all just remains for me to say goodnight, and we've come to the end of our first Great Dune Trilogy. We've done 3 book clubs, one for Dune Messiah, and Children of Dune, and we've been at it for over 3.5 years now. So this will be heading into year 4 with God Emperor of Dune. I'll be starting this soon, within a few weeks, hopefully, as we're about to start sorting things out here in relation to hopefully moving house. Pardon me, 454 pages is a longer book than Children of Dune, and it's one that's a lot of people's favorite, actually. For a lot of people who jump off the Dune series, maybe they don't know why, but this is where the God Emperor really comes into his own, and it's a very unusual book in terms of science fiction, in terms of any kind of book, I think. And we get to go hand in hand with the God Emperor as we head towards the end of his reign, 3,500 years from now. From our Children of Dune book, and it's going to be a trip because he's a very unusual character, and I think there's a lot of Frank Herbert in the God Emperor, and there's a lot of Frank really trying to explain to us what he's done in the first Dune trilogy, and it can also be seen as a bridging book. There's so much to talk about it, but it'll be great to get started into it, folks. And I once again thank you everybody who's been involved in this. All the way from the beginning, it's a great thing. I'm enjoying it very much, and I see this as a kind of very positive thing on the web. I think we've just learned recently that it looks like that machine traffic has overtaken human traffic on the World Wide Web. Apparently, I'm not 100% sure if that's true or not, but that doesn't bode well, does it? And it's a modest little thing that we do here, folks, but so there's about 100, 120 of you that are hardcore and that stick with it. And hopefully anybody out there who's been reading the Dune series, this is a help to them. We're going to keep this stuff up there, and we're going to keep it accessible. And we're going to keep going until we finish all 6 of Frank Herbert's Dune books. So it should take us another 3 years. And I hope you'll all join me. But in the meantime, folks, I'm going to say goodnight. I'm knackered. That was a lot of fun. What a great chapter to end on. All sorts of questions going on about what's going to happen in this universe. If you're a first-time reader, it's a big jump, and we're going to say goodbye to every single character we've known, with the exception of Leto and Duncan Idaho. Basically, they're going to be back in our lives, but we're going to shed off the old Imperium of Paul Muad'Dib Atreides and go to the new one of Leto II, the God Emperor, the ultimate tyrant. I can't wait to get to him. So in the meantime, folks, if you want to read ahead or whatever, be my guest, and I'm still going to have a look at a few other wee science fiction books and stuff. Always enjoy my sci-fi reading, and I'm hopefully going to be start bringing some other content too. I was going to have a video for you actually probably next week, and I accidentally deleted all the writing that I did, which is the first time that's happened to me in ages. I can't believe it. I accidentally deleted something off the computer. I'm not that bad normally. But listen, thank you everybody for your help. All of you have been fantastic. Cynthia, so much. Thank you. Chat, Julian, all of you guys. You all know who you are. Absolutely brilliant. And yeah, we're going to keep at it with the Frank Herbert stuff and try and produce you some new content. And I'm hoping I've got a new notebook started, folks, for a new series, which I'm hoping to do, which I think I could do quite a casual sort of wee thing once a week, as well as we're going to do Doc Sloan's A to Z of the shape of things to come. I'm going to take you through a world of science fiction in an A to Z format. Something else to do in the week that's easy and won't be too difficult for me to manage, I suppose. So there we go. But we'll keep up with the other sci-fi stuff. Listen, I'm long-winded. Thanks very much, folks. We're at the end. This is the Children of Dune book club is complete. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all quite soon. So take a wee break for a few weeks, and we'll see you soon. So thank you very much, and good night. All the best. Take care. Bye bye. Do 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 ba 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 ba.